radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Good evening. Fade to Black. Bespoke radio. For the masses. Yeah, man. I just love saying that. Today is Tuesday, April 27th, 2021. 118 days into the new year. Only 247 days left. We are live from a bunker somewhere in the middle of nowhere. That's right, a total undisclosed location, top secret. But it is beautiful. Love hanging out in here. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States. Hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planets. I am your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? How you doing? How you doing? All right. Tonight, right here on Fade to Black, very special guest, Micah Hanks of the Debrief joins us. Love it when Micah hangs out. And a lot like with Mike Ricksecker last night, Micah is a show host. He's a professional radio guy, been at this game for a very long time, and he makes my job very easy. He's bright, he's smart, he's educated, he's a musician, he knows his stuff, and he can carry the show. I just have to kick back, ask me 2 or 3 questions, and let Micah go. And we're going to do that tonight. Really enjoy when Micah is here. In person, he's great to hang out with, great conversations. On the show, he is great. His own radio show and podcast that he does is absolutely amazing. And Micah Hanks is with us once again tonight. And we're going to be discussing all of the headlines that are going on around the world. There's a lot happening at the moment. And, of course, everything that is going on over at the Debrief, a website that is very quickly rising in not only respectability, but visibility around the world and, of course, with our UFO community. So that is tonight. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan is back with us. And this is, just like Micah, this is a very highly anticipated show. What a great week we've had with Mike Ricksecker last night. That NSA discussion was off the hook. And so that was last night. Tonight, Micah. Tomorrow night, Richard Dolan. And once again, I will say, Fade to Black is the best radio show in the world. And I am the host of it. I can't believe what we are able to pull off every single week. It blows my mind. Thursday night's another Fader night with open lines all night long. Okay, so great week on the show tonight. Micah Hanks is with us. And I just want to get a few things out of the way. One is Billy Carson. I want you to go over, this is Billy Carson's 1-year anniversary for his television network, ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. And all month, he is giving away a 30-day free trial membership for ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. We've got the links over at jimmychurchradio.com. It's easy to get to, forbiddenknowledge.tv. Get over there, get registered, and look at the thousands of programs he's got over there. It's just incredible, the work that Billy Carson does for you in this community. Also, Billy's going to be with us at UFO MegaCon, which is coming up June 6th through the 12th in Laughlin, Nevada. Mike Ricksecker, oddly enough, is also going to be at UFO MegaCon. He was on with us last week, and Billy's going to be there too as well. And next week, I think we're going to get Billy on the show because he's got another big announcement next week, and we were talking about it today, and I'm like, holy crap, really? So I've got to get Billy on the show, a huge announcement, and I think we're going to be able to pull that off sometime next week. UFO MegaCon is June 6th through the 12th in Laughlin, Nevada. It's a live event, real people, real researchers, real guests, real panels, real you, right, at the Aquarius Hotel and Casino. So I want you to head over to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the UFO MegaCon banner that is right there. Get over to the site and get registered and get your tickets now. This is going to be a full-on Fader Not event, and I am so looking forward to that. All right, let's see. Look at the clock. I'm a little ahead of schedule, so let me jump in and just say Carolyn Ford. Carolyn Ford. Here, this is Carolyn Ford. When I say Einstein, thecrystalskull.com, this is a baby Einstein, everybody. That's a baby Einstein. You get a baby Einstein carved in the image of Einstein. Einstein has got this notch in the back, right? So it comes with its own pillow, right? The baby Einsteins come with their own pillow. So they sit like this. This is baby Einstein right here. You can go to EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com and get yourself a baby Einstein. They're all charged and sit in the presence of the real Einstein, and then you can get your own baby Einstein like I have right here in the studio. EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com, promo code Jimmy will get you 10% off of your order today. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Just start right there. And I've been spending a lot of time on Twitter this week. Twitter's just been off of the hook. And of course, Facebook. And I went over to Facebook this week, and I eliminated 500 friends off of my Facebook list. I unfriended 500 people. And there was a weird thing that I noticed on Facebook. Now, I don't want to get all conspiratorial. I don't want to do it. But I unfriended probably 400 people that I did not know, that I don't remember friending. I mean, we had like one common friend between us, just like these weird things. Like, how did this, and it just makes me feel like, you know, somebody out there has access to my Facebook account. I don't know. It was weird. And I got into, and I started, and that's how I chopped 500 people off of my Facebook friends list. I was blown away by that, and I felt like I could have kept on going, like I could have gone back. So, and I got a lot of questions about, well, what was your determination? How did you do this? How do you chop 500 people? Well, you know, past friends, people that I know in person, friends, family, schoolmates, people that I know personally, I know their names, I know who they are. They stayed. The 500 that got whacked, I didn't know anything about them. It was crazy. How could I have, to get on my friends list, we've got to have 30, 40, 50 friends in common. Like we have some commonality between us. One friend, and it was just one after another. Just boom, 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 boom. And the next thing you know, I'm at 500. I had to go through 5,000 names. It took me hours, but I was pretty upset at the end. I was pretty upset, and it made me want to go back through and take another look-see. Yeah, it was disturbing. And I don't want to go all conspiratorial. You know, I just don't want to go down that road, but it felt weird to me. Felt weird. Let's get to the breaking news. Egyptian archaeologist unearthed 110 burial tombs at an ancient site in a Nile Delta province The Tourism and Antiquities Ministry announced today. I'm going to be in Egypt in March with Billy Carson and Johnny Enoch. I'm really looking forward to that. I want to go to this site. The graves, some of which have human remains inside. This is where this gets really interesting, and I want you to listen to what I have to say. They were found at Kum El Kulgan Archaeological Site in the Dakalia province, around 150 kilometers, about 93 miles northeast of Cairo. Listen to this. They include 68 oval-shaped tombs dating back to the pre-dynastic period that spanned from 6,000 to 3150 BC. Holy crap. The remaining 5 oval-shaped tombs date back to the Nakata III period that spanned around 3200 to 3000 BC. That's pre-dynastic period. That's before Mene, the first king of Egypt, when Egypt, Upper and Lower Egypt united. Mene, that was at 3000 BC. That's when the dynastic periods and all of the history, that is just when writing started. Right there, 3000 BC. This goes from 6,000 to 3000 BC. It's an absolute tremendous archaeological find. Incredible. Millions of people stuck at home for more than a year are expected to hit the road for much-needed post-pandemic vacations. They're going to do all of that this summer. But it's now being reported you're going to have some good luck to find gas. Not that there's a looming shortage of crude oil or gasoline. Rather, it's the tanker truck drivers needed to deliver the gas to stations who are in short supply. According to the National Tank Truck Carriers, the industry's trade group, somewhere between 20 and 25% of tank trucks in the fleet are parked. That's right. All of this heading into the summer due to a paucity of qualified drivers. At this point in 2019, only 10% of trucks were sitting idle for that reason. No gas. That's crazy. Well, it went down yesterday. Now, SpaceX, Elon Musk, the CEO, took to Twitter last night and took a swipe at Jeff Bezos, responding to a New York Times report that his aerospace company, Blue Origin, I'm talking about Bezos, had filed a complaint with NASA after the space agency awarded a $2.9 billion contract to construct a moon lander, and they did all of this for Elon Musk and his company. All right? So Elon last night posted this on Twitter. He said, "Can't get it up to orbit." LOL. End quote. That's pretty suggestive, right? And then he followed that up with an even more risque post, refashioning Blue Origin's name to Blue Balls. Blue Balls. With some pretty crude Photoshop work, but he did it. That's right. It all happened yesterday. You can go look at the tweets yourself. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. When some things you just can't make up. You know, you get that rich, and then you start comparing. You're just going after men's private part. I don't know. I'm just going to let that go right there. Let's get the show cracking. Happy birthday to today, Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley is 70. The B-52's Kate Pearson today is 73 years old. And Sheena Easton, For Your Eyes Only, today is 62. I love that song. I loved her ability to do a James Bond theme song. It was great. Our dead guy's birthday today is, moment of silence, please. So sad. Pete Ham, 1947 to 1975, died at the age of 27. Pete was a singer, songwriter, guitarist for Badfinger, whose hits included Come and Get It, right? I think Paul McCartney wrote that for him. No Matter What, another excellent song, one of the best. Day After Day. How about Baby Blue? He also co-wrote the ballad Without You, a worldwide #1 hit for Harry Nilsson. Pete committed suicide in 1975 at the age of 27 when he became depressed while embroiled in band-related issues, record label and management problems, as well as being broke. The emotional scar of his death left Badfinger and their other guitarist, former bandmate Tom Evans, who committed suicide in 1983. Absolute tragic. Badfinger today, had Pete Ham realized how great Badfinger was and their legacy and what they meant to music, because today Badfinger, to me, just one of the greatest bands that ever was, and he committed suicide at the age of 27. Unbelievable. On this day in history, OTD, 4977 BC. The universe was created. Nah, not really. But it was according to German mathematician and astronomer Johannes Kepler. Considered a founder of modern science, Kepler is best known for his theories explaining the motion of planets, and his calculations said the universe was created in 4977 BC. He was off by 13.75 billion years. Fader fact. A 2020 audit. This is fact. This is vetted. A 2020 audit found that Ellen DeGeneres and Kim Kardashian rank among the highest for fake followers in social media. How many are fake? Wait for it. Over 50%. And that is your fader fact. I got 100 million followers. This is great. I got 100 million followers. Half of them are fake. How depressed would they be? Oh, you mean I've only got 50 million? I'm just saying. Rant. Let me go straight to it. Rivermoon Coffee, rivermoonwellness.com. I know the advertising that we're running right now still says rivermooncoffee.com. It'll probably steer you to Rivermoon Wellness. But the website, and you go over to jimmychurchradio.com and you click, it's Rivermoon Wellness. Or it'll take you to the Amazon store. Either way, Fade to Black Blend. Best coffee in the world. So the past couple of weeks have been pretty dramatic in the world of UFOs. No question about it. But with all of the drama that was hyped up back on April 9th, when the headline stated all around the world, Mystery Wire Podcast. I'm quoted. This is the headline. Mystery Wire Podcast. Pyramid-shaped UFOs swarm above Navy destroyer. End quote. That's the headline that everybody ran with. And then on April 15th, Fox News ran with this. Quote, pyramid-shaped UFO spotted by Navy may be the best the world has ever seen. End quote. That is the headline. Fox News also went with this quote. Quote, filmmaker Jeremy Corbell says, quote, this is probably the best UFO military film footage certainly that I've ever seen. But I think also that the world has ever seen. End quote. Right? Well, since then, things have calmed back down. Quickly. Now let's face it. If the U.S. Navy videoed actual, real flying pyramids, this would be the biggest story in the history of mankind, and the news would never stop. This would dominate every media organization throughout the world, and it would last probably forever. As in, till the end of time. We're talking about movies, books, documentaries, TV series, history classes, school, everything. All of it would change. But it didn't happen. And it has died on the vine. Now, you have to ask yourself, why? Why, Jimmy? Why did it die on the vine, dude? Well, the answer is simple. There weren't any flying pyramids. There was no aliens. The video was not anything from beyond our solar system. Everyone, and I mean everyone who took a second look at the video knows that It's ours. There were flashing aircraft lights on the object. That's it. There is nothing more to discuss here, at least from a UFO ET alien perspective. Now, to take things a step further, let me explain something, and I'll be perfectly clear. When we are out doing a sky watch, right? Night vision goggles, binoculars, naked eye, whatever. And we are ready to go, right? We have military grade lasers. We have these at the ready to point at objects in the sky so that everyone knows where they are. So you can say, hey, there's an object right there, and you can look at it, right? That's what we do. You know, you got to be able to find them. But we do not, as in ever, point them at anything with flashing lights. Why? Well, the basic rule is simple. Anything with flashing lights is ours. And looking at them is a complete waste of time. And secondly, you do not want to point a laser at a pilot. This is very uncool, first off, and it could have potentially hazardous and dangerous results. We know this. These are the basic rules of Skywatch. Do you know how long I look at an object with flashing lights, with night vision? You know how long I look at that? Exactly 0 seconds. As in 0. We know in the world of ufology that flashing aircraft lights mean one thing and one thing only. It's ours. It's not theirs. That's it. That's it. Go out to a skywatch. Hang out. Do it. And in the darkness, you'll hear this repeated over and over and over throughout the night. And this is what you're going to hear. You're going to hear, I see something. Nope. Flashing lights. You're in the dark. You know, somebody over here. You know, what's that? Oh, flashing lights. You know, then you're going to hear stuff like, you know, don't point the laser, man. Don't do it. It has flashing lights. This is what you do. And I know that there are some out there that are laughing out loud right now because you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is what goes on in a skywatch, right? And so for those of you out there who thought that I have been, jumped a little too quickly at shooting down the flying pyramids thing, well, now you know why. That's it. That's it. With Corbell trying to convince the world that this video was something alien, something ET or unexplainable, is the same thing if we were out looking at the stars with night vision and I tried to convince you that a plane with flashing lights was something from Zeta Reticuli. It's just not cool. It's not cool. And I don't want any part of it. You got to listen to my words very clearly here. Yes, am I calling out Corbell? Corbell wrote this. And you know what? And now he knows. He did the wrong thing. He did the wrong thing. There's just no defending any of it. You cannot go back to that video and say, hey, it's alien, it's ET. This is unexplainable, man. This is crazy town. No, it's an object in the sky with flashing aircraft lights. It's ours. It's probably from the United States. It's probably from the United States Navy. Dude, stop it. I would never try to convince somebody that something with flashing lights on it is unexplainable. Because it is. Now, I don't want any part of it. I just be very clear. Very clear. Look, nobody, and I mean nobody, wants Anunnaki flying Egyptian pyramids harassing our Navy more than me. I would love it. I would love it. And I'm not joking around. I'm being very serious right now. But Corbell's video is not that. It's ours. And I have nothing more to say. It's just move along, folks. There's nothing more to see here. Got lots to talk about. Tonight, it's Micah Hanks from the Debrief. We're going to be talking about this and a bunch of other stuff. All right? All right. I don't know Micah's position. And one of the things about this show and doing a live show and bringing somebody on, I don't have questions in front of me. I don't do that. You know that. I don't discuss this show with guests before they come on. I don't want to know. I want to have a natural conversation between two people, and I want to hear what they have to say, right? And we're going to do that tonight with Micah. We're going to do this again tomorrow night with Richard Dolan, and that's what Fade to Black is all about. Thursday night is another Fader night with open lines all night long. I am your host, Jimmy Church. It's time to take a quick break because when I come back, it's Micah Hanks of the Debrief. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me right now on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Very simple, at JChurchRadio. Hashtag F2B is the sandbox. Wide open, live, interactive during the show tonight. Hashtag F2BQ is Fade to Black questions. Hello to everybody over on YouTube, Facebook, The Bunker Cam. We've got chat rooms open right over there on Spreaker and KGRA, The Planet. All right. That's it. On the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be right back after this short break with our guest, Micah Hanks. Stay with me.
This is Nicole Church, daughter of you-know-who, and you're listening to Fade to Black on JimmyChurchRadio.com and the Game Changer Network.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Introducing the Game Changer blend from River Moon Coffee that delivers a customized blend made specifically for the Fadernauts. If the game is rigged, change the game. It's a bolder cup with some bite. Game Changer is the coffee of choice for those that prefer an organic dark roast that is slightly lighter and milder, but it's still dark. With wild notes of pecans and chocolate with a rich, balanced, full-bodied cup that is roasted to perfection for a great coffee to start your day, as an after-dinner coffee or anywhere in between. Artisan, small batch roasted to perfection. USDA certified organic, all River Moon coffee is freshly roasted and packaged in the USA. Just go to rivermooncoffee.com or click on the banners over on our site and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. rivermooncoffee.com.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can get our podcast for just $2 per month. All you have to do is click on the podcast banner over at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Hi, folks. It's troubling times, and fear is pushing emotions, which in turn pushes health the wrong direction. Do you ever get an ache because life is uneasy? Try Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea works on your digestive tract, helping to move food through quicker and comfortably so your health is spot on. Life Change Tea may not help with world issues, but it will help with your digestive issues. A glass a day helps keep the intruders away. So, change your life today. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. If your health game is off, get on by ordering Life Change Tea. GetTheTea.com. And while you're on our site, look around at the great non-GMO organic supplements. And if you're a sales shopper, go to our specials page and see what's for you. I've been drinking the tea for 12 years and I'm sure glad for its health benefits. Again, that's GetTheTea.com. GetTheTea.com. The tea that makes you go.
Badernauts, when you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Micah Hanks joins us. We're going to discuss the recent leaked U.S. Navy flying pyramids video and associated images that have been picked up by the mass media all around the world. All that and much, much more. It's Micah. That's what you get when Micah Hanks stops by. He's a writer. He's a podcaster. He's a history fanatic. He's a fan of history. He's a science enthusiast. He's a tanning enthusiast and a Formula One race car driver. His areas of focus include current events, cultural studies, technology, unexplained phenomena, and the way the futures of mankind may be influenced by science and innovation in the coming decades. He's appeared on numerous television shows, radio programs, including Coast to Coast AM, Caravan to Midnight with John B. Wells, the History Channel's Guts and Bolts, CNN Radio, and, of course, Fade to Black. He's the author of several books. You can go to MicahHanks.com. You can get the complete list there. It's too long for me to read, and my vocabulary is not that great. He also currently hosts the Micah Hanks program, formerly known as the Gralien Report, in case you didn't know that. Micah, I'm never going to change that drop of yours on this program. It's a total magic for me, and it's going to stay there for eternity. Welcome back to the program, Micah. How you doing?
I am doing great, sir. Always am when I am here with you and the rest of the Fadernauts. So, how are you doing, by the way?
Well, you know, I am doing great, Micah. And when you're coming on the show, it just puts me in the right mood. We were talking before the show, and I'm ready to go. But this is the thing. You've been doing radio forever. You don't look that old. When did you start doing radio? Just give it to me. Give it to me in decades.
I mean, it was... Let's see. I mean, it was about 15 years ago, maybe, that I started in radio. I was about 24 years old or so. I just turned 38. So yeah, I've been doing it for a while, and of course I've been doing music and working a microphone for years before that. So I kind of entered that field with some prerequisites. But it's funny because I'm a lot like you. Back when I was doing that, right. I was no different from how I am right now. I was the guy who would go in there and willingly work on a Saturday night to fill in for Joshua P. Warren or somebody, or to produce one of his shows, just to be involved in exactly what you and I are doing right now. When there was UFO news breaking, I would go in there and do my best to report it. Let's just say that.
And did you go to school for broadcasting? Were you like a communications major?
No, I was in college at the time, and I had an opportunity. They needed a board op at my local radio station. Right. And I was thinking, okay, let's see. Okay, I can continue pursuing psychology and history, or I could take a leave of absence and go in radio for a while. So, I mean, I literally just got my foot in the door. Now, there's a little more to the story, and I'll keep it short, but I mean, what we find out years later, of course, is that my dad's dad had come to Asheville, North Carolina, Okay, with no money back. I mean, this was right after the Second World War. He had enlisted, and they had said due to some health issues, he couldn't actually go and fight. And so they put him on a shipyard down there in Charleston, South Carolina. Right after the war, he's looking for work. And somebody says, there's a great musician or a great music scene up in Asheville, North Carolina. He played piano.
Right.
And so, he just said, okay, sure, I'll go up there. Let's take off. Let's try it. He shows up in Asheville. The night that he arrives, he goes to the very same studio, my former alma mater, WWNC, and he walks in and says, you guys need a piano player? And they said, well, let's see how you play. And so he played, and they said, you're hired. And they hired him on the spot. So years later, I find out that there's a family history of my family working at that same radio station.
How crazy is that? And for those out there that want to break into radio, I'm not kidding. Any radio station is hiring board ops right now. That's it. They're for most of the networks out there, they run the help wanted board op ads nonstop. Right? They don't ever stop. Right? Because the board ops come in, run the board, and then they start doing traffic, and not necessarily traffic reporting. But traffic is another term inside of radio. So they'll get into traffic, they'll get into writing, maybe advertising sales, they'll start producing a show, or maybe they'll jump behind the mic. But the board op is the easiest way into radio. And I would say that probably most did that route. Most started as a board op. They'll train you as the board. Really? You want to be the board op? Come on in. This is what you do. You press this button here. This turns on the microphone. Do that for the next 4 hours. Right? I mean, that's, and that's how it happens. And that's how it happened with you. Did you ever run a broadcast console before that day?
No, not before that day, but boy, I tell you, I learned how to run a broadcast console after that. I mean, what I was doing, it was a little more than just button op, on the weekends. That's what I thought I would go do is I'm going to pick up some extra hours on the weekends, running ball games and things. No, very quickly, I find myself in the master studio on the big, I think it was like an R60 with the wooden paneling.
Oh, that's so nice. Yeah.
So I'm calling the governor. I'm calling, our congressmen and senators. I'm running a political talk radio program. So there's the host, and here's me. And yeah, you learn really quickly how to do 8 things at once.
That's right.
It is arguably one of the most nerve-wracking professions, but it shaped how I am because, I've always been really interested in the martial arts and music and things. All of those kinds of disciplines, I think you need to have a different level of awareness. Jimmy, you're a guitar player. By the way, ladies and gents at home, I'm looking at his studio wall covered in the most beautiful guitars you've ever seen. This guy and I, we were probably separated at birth, but I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
when
I do.
I talk about that level of awareness. Radio really trains you to be aware of everything that's going on in a room, to be able to listen to one thing with one ear and to listen to something else with your other ear while you're reading something.
Queuing up the next commercial, getting ready with the bumper music and logging what's going on and logging the phone calls. All of that has to happen all at the same time. And then you have to develop, and this is what I talk about a lot, you have to develop who you are, your personality. You don't want to have the facsimile of yourself come over the microphone. Not your representative. You want the real you. And so now you have to figure out how to connect your brain, your soul, your personality to your mouth and never say the word right? And that's the next level of things. How long did it take for you to find yourself? Because you come through. Right now, you're coming through on the mic. That's Micah Hanks. That's the guy that I hang out with that's you. But most people don't understand that you have to find yourself and get that to come through the microphone and go over the airwaves. Hardest thing about radio.
It is. And what's crazy is I saved a lot of my old air checks. The first time I ever hosted a radio show by myself, I saved that first air check. You talk about cringeworthy.
Unlistenable.
Yeah, but what's really funny is a lot of people who have followed me for years, they say, your voice is different now. You don't have the same accent. You don't talk the same way that you did. Well, the reason why is because there is a bit of a conditioning that happens when you're working in radio. One of the first things that ever happened, I went in there, and my boss, John Anderson, to this day, still one of my wonderful friends, and we all knew him as the voice of the mountains. You still hear his voice in all the grocery stores, everywhere you go in town, anytime you listen to the radio. One of the most instantly recognizable voices in this market. But one of the first things he said to me is, don't you ever say W. Okay, this station is WWNC, and you pronounce those words and the letters and the call letters. You pronounce everything you say on the microphone correctly. You never use foul language. When you are in a room with microphones, whether they are hot or not, you know, these are the protocols.
These are the rules. That's rule number 1, 2, 3 right there. It should be posted in every radio station right there. If you can't get these 3 done, go work somewhere else.
That's right. Yeah. But I mean, again, it does kind of rewire not only the way that you talk, the way that you behave in a, on-air format, but it really kind of changes how you think, like I'm saying. So, I mean, it was an incredibly formative experience. And when people point out to me, they're like, what happened to your accent? You don't sound like you did 10 years ago. I'm like, you're absolutely right. I don't. This is what radio does to us. But, I think of it, Jimmy, like an opportunity to cultivate, all of these things that we enjoy about broadcast. Like you said, don't say speak clearly, be able to take a whole lot and condense it into a short phrase and say it quickly and efficiently, because you never know when somebody's going to call in and wreck everything.
No, that's right. I used to sit for hours saying W. I mean, hours, yeah. It was, and the word exercises and the things, and I do all of that privately. I don't do it in front of people. It's embarrassing. But and nobody knows about that aspect of the business and how disciplined you have to be. And W, oh, man. That was a killer, man. That was a killer. Okay, where was I even going with that? Oh, that's because you make the show easy for me, and I'm not. There's another aspect to broadcast, and that is sometimes it's a lot of work where you've just got a guest, and it's real work, and it's a real struggle, and I bring on you, and it's just easy, it's fun, you get it. This is not your first trip around the block. And it's just great when you're on the show. That being said,
that is why I'm going to make life hell for you tonight, Jimmy, and play the contrarian.
It'll be the last show.
Easy show, did you?
Yes, exactly. It'll be the last show on Fade to Black, and you'll how do I say this? You'll find out how easy it is to get blacklisted.
Well, if you're on the blacklist and it's Fade to Black, I figure that's where you want to be.
That's where
right?
you want to be. That's where you want to be. Now, but that is so key. I went back. I just said the word I went back and listened to very early broadcasts and certainly some of the stuff from school. And I did this last year, and I found a file folder with this, and I'm listening to it. It was the worst thing I ever heard. I mean, it was so bad. And the advice that I give, Micah, to people that want to break into the industry, and they're, dude, I've done 10 podcasts. Okay, all right. Well, talk to me when you get to, podcast 100 or 200. Because if you go back and listen to podcast 1 through 10, you realize how bad you suck. It's the truth, and some, they really don't want to hear. Well, you know what? Get to number 200 and see how you've grown, right? See the growth, because what you're doing right now, it sucks. I haven't even heard it. I'm just telling you, because when you get to 200, you get to 300, you get to 400, and you just grow. Every show is your best show at that point, right? Because everyone is just such an improvement, and you're able to connect your frontal lobes to your brain. Your frontal lobes to your mouth. See, I can't even do it. So anyway, let's get straight to it, Micah. The headlines over the last couple of weeks. I'm sure that you listened to my little diatribe at the beginning of the show, and it was pretty shocking to me to see these explosive headlines, which were covered on the Debrief, and we're going to go through that in just a minute, but also by every media outlet all around the world. Potentially the biggest headline in human history, right? Flying pyramids. Flying frigging pyramids over the U.S. Navy. If that is the case, then that is the biggest game-changing event in world history, period. Probably bigger than the resurrection. I'm saying we're going big. That's big news. How could it not be spoken about today? Right? Let's go back to 2 weeks ago, April 9th. The Debrief runs with the headlines. You're reading it, you're looking at it, and you're looking at this video. What went through your mind?
Well, what usually goes through my mind when there's UFO news that breaks these days, I am both at once. I think I am excited and yet also underwhelmed consistently. Okay, and again, the backstory, a lot of what has happened in the last month, we'll say, let's extend it a little further back, because we've had photographs that have been released that appear to have been taken from an iPhone 8. Okay. Which appear to depict objects that last time, in fact, I came on the show and talked with you, I had laid out the case based on what a lot of other people had also been saying, and my personal opinion based on what the photos appear to depict, what I thought was a balloon. Mm-hmm. Now, some have tried to argue that that is not what is in the photograph. It may not be a balloon. I don't know. I will say, however, if I had to guess based on what it looks like in the photographs, my guess would still go with balloon. Okay, because I haven't seen a convincing argument that what we see based on what the photos depict is not a balloon. Now, there is, of course, the testimony from the pilots. They have described, anomalous behaviors, i.e. that it didn't seem to move with the current. It seemed to stay in place. Now, if that indeed is true, maybe we're looking at something else, and I'm more than happy to hold out for that possibility. In addition to that original photograph, of course, and keep in mind the original photo, which you and I talked about last time.
Yes.
It had been online, and I told this to your listenership. It had already been on Twitter for months. By the time we reported it because we were able to confirm, Tim McMillan actually having authored that piece, that it had indeed been one of the photos that the UAP task force apparently is reviewing. Now, more recently, George Knapp, of course, has released additional photographs. He had also had those in his possession for some time. The photos, yet again, there's still some confusion about whether they all show the same object or different objects. My interpretation is it is probably all one object, and that these were all taken within a short frame of time. Then we also had, of course, the footage, which appears to be night vision footage that's actually a smartphone, yet again, filming through a night vision scope. And it shows these triangular objects moving above a Navy destroyer. That, of course, leaked by filmmaker Jeremy Corbell. Now, there's been a lot of talk about this in recent days. Why am I excited? Well, because I'm very happy to see UFO dialogue consistently appearing in the news. Why am I underwhelmed? Well, like you said, if we look at what appears, both in the photographs aforementioned and also the footage of these purported pyramidal objects that were hovering over this aircraft, they look to me, and again, this is just my gut, but they look to me like they very well could have been made right here on our little mud ball. Now, I don't know what they are. I would still maintain that Mick West and others who have said, well, the simplest and therefore the most likely explanation is that they're just standard airplanes far away and they only looked like triangular objects. No, I actually think that may be actually an oversimplification. I don't think we need to go that far. That was really tantamount to what Mick has done in the past when he has looked at the purported Tic Tac footage captured by Chad Underwood and said, well, that's just a 747. I've got a lot of problems. We could break that down. Again, a lot of people have already. But I mean, my point is, do we need to oversimplify it? Now, I don't know what the objects in those films are. The most recent footage, again, to me, looks like it could be drones of some kind, but I wouldn't say alien necessarily.
Okay, and my point that I keep going back to, and others, I'm not just the only one, but those are flashing aircraft lights. That immediately eliminates ET.
Or does it? Or does it? Now let's just.
Okay.
I want to play devil's advocate here. Okay,
Okay,
let's run down the list. A few things that you in your intro. And
I have an open mind, Micah. Okay, I really want to know what you have to say.
I have an open mind too. I also think that you and I are both open-minded and skeptical. You can be both at the same time, and you can pull the right tool out at the time based on what the instance requires, right?
Yeah, and I would say that you used to be more skeptical than you are today.
I think that's actually true, and I'll tell you, I've often been very critical in the past of the idea that there was significant data being withheld by the government, but based on further review of data and further, actually new information forthcoming, that's even more important. I think that there is now a much more obvious case that there is information being withheld by the U.S. government, intelligence agencies about UFOs. We can get to that a little later, too. But first, I want to go down the list with some things you talked about in the intro.
Okay.
You'd mentioned this would be like the biggest story if this was actual, UAP in this footage. Again, we might have to challenge that conception, too, because in the past, there have been very noteworthy UFO instances that they get their time in the spotlight, but eventually people are just kind of like, okay, great, well, And again, when we were on late night radio talking about the Pentagon officially, not just leaks, officially disclosing those 3 Navy videos, you remember the resounding meh by the media? People were like, well, we've already seen those. That doesn't mean anything. And we're like, guys, the Navy, the Pentagon actually, has said of Navy videos that they class the objects in those videos as unidentified. They don't know what that is. Now, some still are a little suspicious of that. But again, if we take them for what they said, that should be the biggest story of all time right there. But look how people responded. So would this necessarily be the biggest story? Maybe not. Can we be sure these pyramids are ours? You're talking about the flashing lights and things. I will head back over to the Blue Book files for just a moment. In fact, I'll quote Ed Ruppelt from the report on unidentified flying objects. He talking about the famous Gorman dogfight incident. And the description he gives of the object. Again, he says that the light was 6 to 8 inches in diameter, was sharply outlined, and was blinking on and off. So sometimes objects that we would class UAP do sometimes actually exhibit very earthly behaviors, including blinking. But then again, I also have to say that some IFOs, objects that we can identify as not theirs, they don't flash. Think about, for instance, iridium satellites that are reflecting sunlight, right? So there are instances where we have to also take these things into consideration. But coming back to Mick West, again, I would feel like looking at the recent night vision footage of these triangular objects and saying, well, those are just regular aircraft much further away. He said the same thing about Chad Underwood's footage. I do feel that's an oversimplification. I don't think we have to go that far out where we completely dumb down all the possibilities and say this is so mundane. And really what that says about our military, that they would look at this at all, we have to lose faith in their ability to actually discern anything unusual. I don't agree with him on that point, and there are a lot of reasons why. But I would agree with him that maybe we should look for more earthly explanations first and be open to the possibility that there could be something more anomalous. Now, something that's interesting about the recent footage, and again, we've got to also acknowledge the reporting by Adam Kehoe et al. Over there at the War Zone. Ty Rogaway also now chiming in, and his take on all this is he says these are all just low-end drone technologies.
Right.
And the Pentagon is acting like these are UFOs. Again, respectfully, and I really love Ty's reporting, but I'm not so sure that I would be so definitive in saying that these are all just low-end drone technologies. If that's what these are, what these pieces of footage that have been leaked represent, we have to ask a few questions. Why were they being filmed in the first place? Why did it at any time have the appearance of being anomalous enough that they would go after it, right? These are the kinds of questions that do bespeak that maybe there's something there. It just may not be the extreme that many people portray it as, i.e. alien or just a plane, right?
Right. So the truth lies somewhere in the middle. And I would say that if I was a betting man, that those were U.S. Navy drones flown off of San Clemente Island. The Navy didn't inform the destroyers and the other Navy ships that were out there that they were flying these drones off of the island, and that's the end of the story. That's it. That's why Guys were sent out on the deck to video these and to identify what was going on. But that's it, which to me is a bigger story than E.T. How do you have the breakdown in command? How does the Navy make these mistakes? Investigate that. And I think that the Navy is investigating that and why there was a lack of communication. The only other and the second story here, explanation for this, is that it could be Russian or Chinese. Maybe they surfaced a sub, swarmed some drones into our military airspace during some training. That is a big story, and how that would happen. But why would China or Russia have a strobing aircraft light on a spy drone that's supposed to be invisible, right?
So you're asking all the right questions. Again, if they must have wanted to announce their presence, okay? And like you're saying about how they would have been put in close enough proximity to a Navy destroyer, one of two things is happening here, in my opinion. There had to be a mothership, and by that I mean a submarine like you're talking about, something from a closer distance from which those could have been launched. Or
if it was a foreign adversary.
If it was a foreign adversary, or they had to have come from the U.S. mainland, and the fact that these operations are again occurring closer to the U.S. mainland, that had been my line of thinking. Could these be our own? Because these things have to have some sort of a propulsion source. They have to have fuel to get out there, presumably. And I think that would hold true even if these are something far more anomalous. But again, my guess would be that somebody's operating drones. If it's the enemy, why do they want to be seen? If it's not the enemy, why weren't our guys told?
Exactly. I'm a betting man. It was the U.S. Navy flying drones off of San Clemente Island. Very simple explanation. It makes perfect sense. And the strobing, flashing aircraft light that is clearly in the video is the game changer for me. I want it to be Anunnaki flying pyramids. I do.
I want it to be that. That could be horrific.
I do, man. I do. Harassing our Navy. God, that would be so cool. That would be awesome, but that's not what it is. Let's take our break right here. Micah, you stay right there. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Micah Hanks of the Debrief. We've got more to discuss on this story because that's part one. We're going to get to part two on April 15th in just a second. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. More with Mike after this short break. Stay with us.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right. 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
Listen, I know, and you know, that you've always wanted your first crystal skull. Or maybe you're a collector just like me, but you just don't know where to go to find the real thing. Then I met Carolyn Ford over at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. Carolyn is the guardian of Einstein, one of the most respected ancient crystal skulls in the world. All of her unique skulls have been imprinted sitting with Einstein in his sacred lodge and are carved from the finest gemstone and materials. Imprinting is the process of receiving the ancient wisdom from the master skull or master computer. Einstein the Ancient Crystal Skull. To see Carolyn's current collection of crystal skulls, just visit her store at EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com or click on the banner over on our site. Don't forget to use the promo code Jimmy at checkout to receive 10% off of your order today. That's promo code Jimmy. Finding your first or next crystal skull is easy. Just visit EinsteinTheCrystalSkull.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and you can become an official Fadernaut by just going to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com.
Hello, this is Serena Wright Taylor from Conscious Life Expo, and you're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church, who holds the Lucky Pony record for the best astrological chart since 1963. True story.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Micah Hanks is with us. The Micah Hanks Show. The Micah Hanks Program. The Micah Hanks Network. Formula One driver and tanning enthusiast. Listen, Micah, all kidding aside, when I look at everything that went down with these, the flying pyramid, it's one thing to jump to a conclusion, create the Barnum and Bailey atmosphere, generate clicks, and get contacted by the media, and I understand people need and desire that. I get that, but there's another part to this, and that is John Greenwald of the Black Vault, and I think another journalist too, got Susan Gao over at the Pentagon to say that, yes, these are actual U.S. Navy videos and they're part of the UAP Task Force report, and they were leaked. Okay. What Susan Gao did not say is that these are Navy videos of flying pyramids. Right? That's not what she said. She didn't confirm that. She said nothing of the sort. She just said that the videos are real. Okay. The media then turns around with the suggestion of others that twisted the headline into the Pentagon verifies flying pyramids video, and implying that the Navy admitted and the Pentagon said that these are videos of flying pyramids. That's not, and so now we get this twisted, and it gets around the world. You at the Debrief, who has become one of the most respected websites and reporting sites out there, you guys are now tasked with a dilemma. You know, what do you do here? How did you guys handle the twisting of the implications coming out of the Pentagon?
You know, what Tim McMillan wrote in a recap of all of these events that transpired, I believe that was published maybe on April 9th. So, I mean, it's been a few weeks now. But he just kind of outlined what had been said and had explicitly said, yes, Susan Goff has confirmed that, and she had one day earlier, as you noted, told our brother John Greenwald that these she could confirm as having origins, you know, within the Navy. But that, of course, did not confirm anything about what the objects in the footage might be. And she continues to say, you know, again, as I have told you guys hundreds of times, literally. I mean, she must be so tired of telling people that the Pentagon does not comment on, you know, the nature of what we are investigating with the UAP task force or anything else. Right now, that's not going to do us any favors. So she will not elaborate any further. But you're right. The problem is that the media generally looks at this, and also some of the hopeful UFO advocates who I would say are non-media, certainly not traditional card-carrying journalists. A lot of people looked at that and said, okay, but she did enough. She's already said everything that we needed to hear, which is that the videos are real. They're real. Now, in terms of how we would approach that at the Debrief, you know, it really just comes down to report what are facts. Don't, you know, speculate. You don't editorialize. Editorializing to me is saying that the Pentagon just released incredible UAP footage, which seems to confirm that there are technologies we can't identify. No, nothing about the footage right now that we have seen says that this is necessarily technology that cannot be identified or that is anything beyond the scope of what physics knows. You know, again, I have to say, watching the footage, I can't identify the objects immediately, but I would simply say I'm not overly impressed, and they appear to be drones of some kind. Now that I've laid the trap for you and allowed you to think that I'm going to say over the course of the entire program that these are all probably our own technologies and that there's nothing to see here, I do want to point out, of course, that the other side of this that everybody misses in the media, and also all the kids who started following UFOs in 2017, read a couple of books about Roswell and became experts 2 years ago.
Right.
You know, or whenever. All these people who are fairly new to this are completely missing the history. They completely overlook the historical aspects of all of this. And I think it's really important, if we're going to understand and properly frame the narrative about what we may be dealing with, we also have to understand the deeper history of this topic. Again, I look back to that Gorman dogfight. I don't know what the little thing was that the pilot actually observed. He sees this little, you know, roughly maybe the size of a beach ball. It's a flashing light. Not the most impressive of all UFO technologies. If anything, it actually sounds somewhat like the Foo Fighters that were observed, during the Second World War by some of the Allied and Axis pilots. But the question I have is, what kind of technology that appears to have no discernible propulsion system, which is just a little ball of blinking light that is flying and outmaneuvering one of the best planes that we had at the time? What was that? You know, and this immediately after the famous estimate of the situation back during the Project Sign years. For those wondering, again, we're talking about the late 1940s. What kind of technology of ours existed then that could account for some of these UFO reports? Now, let's go a little further back. Even during the war, okay, we've got this report that Barry Greenwood reported about years ago, and I love this one. April 5th, 1943, 9:50 a.m., he's talking about a pilot named Jerry Casey. Casey was a primary instrument flight instructor supervising a student in a BT-13A trainer. Cruising near Long Beach, California with the student flying, Casey had glanced eastward and noticed a peculiar flash in the sky. And as he looked more carefully, he saw an aircraft in a moderate dive toward the trainer. Preparation for evasive action was made ready in case it was needed as the craft continued to approach and then pass on the trainer's left side. Now, as Casey said, this plane, keep in mind, folks, 1943, this plane was quite odd. He said it was radiant orange in color with no openings or glass visible. There was no propeller, no propulsion of any kind visible. It was elliptical with a rounded hump on top and a smaller hump underneath. Jimmy can see the image I'm holding up right now. This is based on what Jerry drew. It looks an awful lot to me like a flying saucer.
Yes, pretty much.
Now, I don't know what that is that he saw, but he thought at the time it was a new spy plane in development, and so he didn't say anything about it because he thought, well, if this is one of ours, I need to be a good American, loose lips sink ships, so I won't say anything, and he didn't talk about it. But of course, after years and years and years, he kept thinking about what was that glowing orange, wobbling, saucer-shaped object that nearly collided with my plane over California in 1943. And eventually he came around to thinking, I don't think that was anything of ours. But probably he didn't start thinking that until Kenneth Arnold in 1947. Project Blue Book, and of course its predecessors are instituted, where we actually have the newly formed U.S. Air Force looking at this phenomenon and going, there appears to be a there. We don't know what it is. It doesn't appear to be a threat, but there definitely seems to be something we can't account for. This also the reason why, by 1961, former CIA Director Roscoe Hillenkotter had joined NICAP and come out publicly and said, look, these technologies do not appear to be China or Russia. They exceed anything we know or anything the U.S. has, and we need to look at this seriously. Now, if you take all of that into consideration, and then you look at what was filmed in 2004, look at what was filmed in 2019, look at what the Pentagon is talking about now, and what the UAP task force under the Department of the Navy is looking at. I mean, with the proper historical backing, I find it very hard to say that this is all just stuff that the Navy built. And again, I get this all the time on Twitter, people saying, well, I would believe in UFOs if it weren't for the fact that the Navy has already demonstrated technology that can do all this. And I'm like, have they? Can you send me a link? Can you show me the documents that clearly and unequivocally show that our military, any branch, is who is building this stuff? And if they're building it, were they building it in 1947 or 1946 or 1943? I think that the history of the phenomenon shows us that there is at least some component of this. All discussion about the possible drones that were filmed in 2019 notwithstanding, there's some component to this that has been here far longer, and to simply say it's our tech and that we've had it somehow since the 1940s, that doesn't jive for me.
Well, I agree with everything that you just stated, but there is a dramatic but here. And the dramatic but is when we are...
about a dramatic but, okay?
Kim Kardashian. It's Kim Kardashian. Is this. Right now, we are talking about the United States Navy, specifically in one location off of the west coast of the United States, in a training area where you have Camp Pendleton, you have the United States Navy, and you have San Clemente Island, and San Clemente Island is the only live fire U.S. Navy installation in the world. And suddenly that's where we are seeing this. We're not seeing this over Los Angeles, and we're not seeing this over New York City or Dallas or Seattle or Kansas City. It's specifically in one area. And the 2019 video, which allegedly was about 700 feet in altitude. Okay, that's according to the United States Navy and their own reporting. The Drive and Tyler Roggaway over the War Zone and the Drive both reported this through the ship's logs and FOIA requests for documents. That's the U.S. Navy's words. So when I look at this object that is traveling at 700 feet, first off, it's not big, number one. Number two, it's not doing anything extraordinary. It's flying in a straight line, and it's got a strobe light on it. That withstanding, Micah, I have seen the craziest crap in the skies that you can't explain. That goes right back to all of the reports that you just mentioned yourself. But that is apples and oranges. This flying pyramid video it's ours.
But you see why, when I said earlier I was underwhelmed? Yeah, I'm excited to see discussion of UFOs in the media right now. But again, I'm very underwhelmed by a lot of the stuff that we're seeing and again, I would actually extend that to some of the other 3 Navy videos that were previously released. Chad Underwood's footage captured with the Raytheon at-flare targeting pod that purportedly shows this tic-tac thing that Commander Fravor and his company observed, his weapons officer and the other pilot. That is interesting to me. And based on our understanding of the operational capabilities of the Raytheon unit that filmed it, that also is interesting to me. The other two pieces of footage I am not as convinced by, I think that there are other pieces of footage that have come forth in recent years. The Aguadilla, Puerto Rico footage from a few years ago.
Incredible footage. That footage, Micah, should be talked about right now, in front, worldwide, constantly. That is crazy. That is unexplainable, what goes on in the Homeland Security Puerto Rican video. Now, let me back up.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm not in any way poo-pooing on everything that was just released. The video I have problems with because I've got night vision. I'm out there all the time, and I know what I see, and that's what's in that video. It's not that big of a deal.
Are you a Sasquatch now? You've got night vision?
I do. I do. It's built in. Elon Musk. Is this the blimp photograph that George Knapp posted? That's incredible. I don't know what that is the object. I don't know what that is. It could be Mando, could be Mandalorian. I think there's a possibility of that. But that's a pretty crazy. I don't know why Knapp calls it blimp, because it took the air out of it for me. Could it just be some kind of blimp? I don't see that. I think that's a pretty incredible photograph. The Batman balloon could be. I still find that intriguing. The altitude is what throws me off on that. That a Mylar balloon flying at 40,000 feet, I have issues with. I'm pretty intrigued. My mind is still open on that. The jury's still out. But this other image that Knapp posted of this, he calls it the blimp. That's interesting. I'm not. It doesn't look like a drone. It doesn't look like anything terrestrial that I've seen before in the skies. What did you think of the blimp photograph?
Well, first, I think that the terms that are being used now that really Knapp introduced, but I think that he had gleaned those terms based on operational, not really code names, but kind of nicknames that have been given to the objects in the photographs. So the Batman balloon has been called the Acorn. Mm-hmm. I think blimp was a similar nickname that had been given to the object based on its likeness in the photograph. Again, I don't know what those are. Both of them do appear in a lot of ways to be balloon-like to me, but, Tim McMillan actually checked with the Navy Safety Center and filed a FOIA request and found he was actually given a ton of HAZREPs, and as he reported recently, HAZREP, by the way, is just short for a hazard report, as was clarified for me by my good buddy Jeff Smith some time ago. He was actually a Navy navigator. I'm sorry, a U.S. Air Force navigator for years. Had more than 1,000 flight hours, and so he's my go-to guy for all this stuff. And I love having somebody who understands all the terminology even better than I do. But yeah, Tim reported previously there at the debrief that with the hazard reports that he was given by the Navy Safety Center, he wasn't able to correlate any HAZREPs involving incidents that appeared to indicate sightings of balloons that seemed to match what appeared to be in the photographs. And based on the metadata that we have, actually the EXIF data, I suppose, from the photographs, that's how we knew that it was an iPhone 8. We even knew which camera on the phone apparently took it. But based on the date and the time, with the time zone into consideration, again, all this we discussed last time I was on the program, we can't correlate that with any of the HAZREPs that were provided via FOIA. That indicates that these were concerning enough that there were actually hazard reports filed. There don't appear to have been any. So if these objects were photographed, one of two things seems to have occurred. There wasn't any kind of report filed that we know of, or if there was a report filed, it wasn't a run-of-the-mill hazard report, and that might have gone someplace else. I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's an interesting prospect, but I don't see any evidence that was necessarily the case. But we should also point out that, even back during the years of Project Blue Book, there were instances where, of course, we had what were called the service or the CIRVIS reports, right? The CIRVIS. This was a reporting system where essentially anything that was deemed of concern, which also included unidentified flying objects, based on their proximity to a location of concern, or if it was military servicemen and women who had actually seen these, this could actually be reported all the way up to NORAD, which to this day, of course, is actually exempt from FOIA, being a a component both of the United States and also Canadian air defense. Now, that didn't stop John Greenwald from getting a bunch of serious reports there a few years back, but the U.S. won't give theirs over, and NORAD is very traditionally tight-lipped about it. But I'm telling you that just to point out the fact that there are reporting mechanisms that have been in place for years that would allow for a UFO report to be filed with the government that would be presumably exempt from FOIA and that would not necessarily go to the traditional reporting channels, which at the time included Project Blue Book. Here it might also include the Navy Safety Center and the HAZREPs that they've turned over. Now, that's speculation on my part. That might account for why these things didn't appear in those reports. I couldn't tell you what those things in the photographs actually are. My first guess would be maybe balloons.
Why do you go balloon? If Knapp hadn't have called the image blimp, I don't know if he called. I don't know if he named the file blimp or if he coined the term blimp. But if I hadn't have read that, I wouldn't have gone blimpy. It didn't look blimpy to me.
Right. And again, I don't think that he actually, to my knowledge, was the one who actually gave them those nicknames. But this is a really interesting conundrum when it comes to UFOs. The way that what you call them tends to shape our attitudes about them. I mean, the same thing really has happened somewhat with the Tic Tac, in the sense that once Dave Fravor said this thing was like a great big flying Tic Tac, actually Chad Underwood claims that he was the first one that called it that. Whoever did, when they introduced that terminology, now everybody's like, well, all the UFOs are Tic Tacs, right? There were never any flying saucers. And again, going back to 1947, when the United States, media here began to report on what Kenneth Arnold saw over Mount Rainier, they were the ones that called it a flying saucer, not Mr. Arnold. And once that term took hold, everybody referred to these things, including J. Allen Hynek, flying discs, daylight discs. He was calling with his UFO types that he had, daylight discs, nocturnal lights, daylight discs, radar visuals, CE 1, 2, and 3. Hynek was using that term daylight disc, even though he would acknowledge not all the things we're calling a disc are even disc shaped. This is just a general term that we use. But immediately you see how there's a stigma that's introduced with that. And so we have to be really careful when we give names to things like blimp or acorn, because people start going, oh, yeah, it's a balloon. Now, I had thought that the quote-unquote acorn looked like a balloon beforehand. So did Tim McMillan and Jay Banias. We all, when we first became aware of that photograph, thought, in fact, Tim had contacted NOAA to try and find out if it might be some variety of weather balloon that they might recognize. They said that doesn't look like one of ours. But, of course, the internet sleuths very quickly were quick to point out that it bore a rather striking similarity to this Batman balloon. And I have to say, again, in terms of just, what is most likely, it looks the most like that. Now, there are some questions, like you mentioned, about possible altitude and, the maximum height that a Mylar balloon would be expected to fly. I wonder about all that. But again, when I say it looks like a balloon, I'm not necessarily saying that all the evidence points to that. I'm saying that based on what the object in the photograph most closely resembles, I have to go with the Party City balloon. Okay.
Yeah, well, I hear you. There's another issue with that, though. If that balloon, which was a 20-inch tall balloon, for a 20-inch tall balloon to be photographed like that from the cockpit of an FA-18, it had to have been at the wingtip. I mean, it's 20 inches tall.
Well, if you look at the full photograph, the full frame photograph.
I have it right here.
Look at that full frame photograph. It's a good distance away. It's not quite right there at the wingtip.
So how could it be 19 inches tall if it's a good distance away? That's my issue.
I see what your point is that the object would appear to be larger if it's a good distance away and still be visible like that. That, or it is closer, and it has the superficial appearance of being a far.
Totally. I get all of that, and I'm trying to rationalize this in my mind. Are we having a depth of field issue here? Is it a 20-inch balloon that looks like it's a quarter mile away or a mile away, whatever? Or is it 20 inches at the wingtip?
Yeah, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I mean, here's the problem I have with this. I was talking with Ted Rowe from NARCAP, great organization that has been looking at some real serious, gnarly UFO incidents involving U.S. pilots, commercial pilots. And again, Ted Rowe's position on this is essentially, and has been for years now, that UAP must be observed and understood, and we really need to be making an effort to get pilots to be aware of the potential hazards that they may represent to aviation safety. But, I look at all the information that's been collected by NARCAP and organizations like that, and I'm talking with Ted about those photos, and he says, oh, yeah, you mean that balloon? It's very much his opinion that this object is probably a balloon, too. When we're talking about what the photograph might indicate, the real problem we have, Jimmy, is that I doubt that there is enough information in the photograph. All the web sleuths, Roger Glassell and others have, seen the reflection of the emblem on the pilots, or it might have been actually the other individual in the cockpit, but on the helmet. We were able to glean all this information, which helps us know who was there, where it likely was photographed, and all these details, and yet we still are talking about it. Why? Because there's not enough information in the photograph that we will ever probably be able to conclusively determine what it is. Therefore, what concerns me is this really where the UFO debate is right now, about whether a possible balloon, is maybe the best evidence that's been leaked in recent days, or whatever these drones were that were filmed in 2019. Now, you think about, here's something that really interests me and where I'd like to see this debate going. And this gets over into kind of, conspiracy country here, because we had former DNI Ratcliffe going on Maria Bartiromo's program on Fox News talking about satellite imagery that appears to depict UAP and all this stuff. And he was really, he dropped some bombshells. A lot of people were just going, wow, this is really interesting. Then, of course, within days, we have Marco Rubio, who is now the vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee. But, of course, he had been chair at the time when he had proposed the bill, which actually led to the eventual enactment of the UAP task force. But Marco Rubio is sitting there saying, hey, you know what? Here's the deal. We don't know what these phenomena are. I don't know if by the time this report arrives, and it may not be here by, he said June 1st, but really it's June 24th or so when we're supposed to be seeing it. He says, I don't know if we're going to have enough data in that report to conclusively determine what these things are. But he says there's definitely something that's going on, and we need to observe it, and we need to understand it. But then Brian Bender reporting in the Politico just days after that, and the fact that the UAP task force, according to sources in Washington who are familiar with the matter, they're now saying that they are essentially getting, and this is the term that Bender used, they're being stiff-armed by the intelligence agencies. Many of the intel agencies don't appear to be completely compliant with the requests for information on UAP that the UAP task force has asked for. So my question is, we hear former DNI Ratcliffe and Marco Rubio and people who have been briefed, and Rubio has said we've been briefed on this for close to a decade at least, probably longer than that. But the point is they have seen some of what we have, and it's unclear now whether or how much the UAP task force will be given, let alone whether that will be made available to the public in a unclassified form. So my question is, what was DNI Ratcliffe talking about? What have those guys seen? And why is it that the intel agencies, even when we have a UAP task force established under the cognizance of the Department of the Navy to look at this, and a request by the Senate Intelligence Committee to make a public report, an unclassified public report, why can we still not get this stuff? Now, you said earlier, Jimmy, that Mikey, you seem these days maybe a little less skeptical than you used to be. I'm always going to be a skeptic, but I will tell you this. Based on what I have seen in recent days, it seems very clear to me that the intelligence agencies do have a lot of information about UFOs. It seems increasingly unlikely that all of that will be provided to the task force, and I'm wondering now how much, or really if any, will be made available to the public. That's what we should really be talking about, and that's what frustrates me, I think, about all these sensational photographs, which comes back to another point you made earlier. The good intentions of the people who are reporting on these sensational leaked photos. I'm so sick of leaked photographs. I'm so sick of all this silly stuff and all this conjecture about what this might be or might not be. Drones, theirs, ours, whatever. Let's talk about what the intelligence agencies have shown members of Congress, those who have received classified briefings, what they're talking about, and why this is something that has consistently for decades been withheld from the U.S. public. That should be the issue.
Preach. Let's take our break right here. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Micah Hanks. I can tell we're just getting started. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Mike after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church. You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Do you want to be an official Fadernaut? Of course you do. This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black. Just go to our membership section at jimmychurchradio.com. Fadernauts. When you think about the future of our country and where we're headed, do you wonder about the food supply? I do. Disruptions in the food supply chain could be disastrous, and they usually occur with little warning. That's why the smartest thing you can do today is to stockpile emergency food, water, and other essentials. I personally recommend My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's largest emergency preparedness company, serving millions of customers for more than a decade. In fact, they're the only source my family trusts for our preparedness plan. You should too. Right now, save 20% off a full 4-week supply of delicious meals that provide 2,000 calories a day. Saving 20% helps too, doesn't it? Especially now. So go to preparewithjimmy.com and get ready. That's preparewithjimmy.com. There's no time to lose. Do it now.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Micah Hanks. More with Micah in just a minute. I want to talk to you about Virtual Shield VPN. Virtual Shield has been a sponsor of this show for quite a while. And supporting our sponsors is how we keep this show alive. That's what we do. Virtual Shield VPN protects everything that I have. My search traffic, my location. I'm in a uber secret spot right now. Nobody knows where I'm at. You can't find me. You're not going to find me through my ISP. And I do all of that with Virtual Shield and Virtual Shield VPN. Your internet traffic, what you do, all of that is encrypted and hidden from everybody. That's it. No more annoying pop-up ads because you were surfing the My Pillow Guy website, and then suddenly those ads pop up. But that's not going to happen. Not anymore with Virtual Shield VPN. They have a strict no logs policy. That's it. Encrypted servers all around the world. That's what they do. All of these computers here, everything has Virtual Shield VPN. It's all simple to do. Support the show. Visit virtualshield.com/fade to black. That's all you've got to do. And if you don't want to type into your browser, which I understand, right? I get that. Type on the link in the video description box below. Click on the link in the video description box below. It's right there, Virtual Shield VPN. Click on it, head over. You will get Virtual Shield VPN for 50% off today. Everybody in today's world needs their own VPN. Virtual Shield is the absolute best. Our guest tonight is Micah Hanks. And Micah, we were talking about guitars earlier, and I wanted to show you and everybody else something very unique. And that is this guitar right here. This guitar is a Fender Strat. Okay? But it's not just...
I'm aware.
But it's not just any Fender Strat. This guitar, 1990. It's 31 years old. This guitar has never been played. I bought this at a pawn shop 20 some odd years ago, and I got it because it was a cool color and it had a tremolo on it, and I brought it home and put it in the garage where it sat for another 10 years. And 10 years ago, when I was putting the studio together and hanging guitars and figuring things out, I went, man, I got that Fender Strat in the garage, right? And I'm going down. There's the case. All right, so I take it out and I open it up and I took another look at it. I hadn't looked at it since I bought it, and it sat in the case. Still had the plastic on the pick guard. Still has the plastic on the back. There's not a scratch on it. It's never been played. This is a brand new, perfect, flawless, 31-year-old guitar that has never been played. I gave it a fret job. It's got a beautiful neck, but I don't want to scratch it. I don't want to. It's still got me plastic on the back. It's still got me plastic. And the case still has the tags in it. I got all the original paperwork. It's crazy, isn't it? But that's a 31-year-old, brand new, never been played guitar. Not a scratch or a ding on it. Pretty cool, isn't it?
I like it.
Yeah. I ran the serial number, came back 1990. It's like, oh, it's 31 years old. How crazy is that?
That's close to the same vintage of the old black Strat that I play, and it's identical to that, except it's far more beat up than that guitar, and it's black instead of the kind of dark purple that yours has. Is that a purple sparkle?
No, it's it's just a straight purple.
Yeah,
but,
I kind of like that though. It's cool looking.
Yeah. I was thinking about painting it, and then I just backed up. I thought, man, it's a 31-year-old guitar.
Oh yeah.
I don't even want to scratch it so it just sits up here, and there it is. But there's a story behind every guitar here. There's a story behind it. But you're a musician. I thought you enjoyed that. All right, now, getting back to our discussion. There's another part of this that I feel that the media bears a lot of responsibility for, but things will never change. And society will take something, and no matter what it's about, but if it's repeated enough and it goes out into the public domain, it's now accepted as fact, right? And so, and it affects people's vision and how they see things and how they perceive things. Now we have an instance of flying pyramids, and now it doesn't matter what the facts are. It is now out there, and the media doesn't go back and retract statements, right? It's a cut and paste world that we live in with news reporting today. There isn't a whole lot of journalism like what you guys do over the Debrief. You guys actually type, right? That doesn't go on that much anymore. And now we go into this danger zone that there's flying pyramids off the coast of California, flying pyramids. And you can't change the public's mind now because of the dogma that gets repeated. How do we make this change? How do we stop this? How do we get the media to bear some responsibility in this?
Well, I do think that this is an existing problem that's been around for a long time. And again, I'm very glad to see that there are a lot of people who are writing and who are, reporting from different perspectives. I got to hand it to the, Ty Roggaway, Brett Tingley, my brother over there, and the guys at the War Zone. they really, have done fantastic reporting on this also. And there are others too. And I think it's important to see diversity in opinion as far as what is being expressed and how the dialogue is being framed. But the problem arises when you have, largely tabloid journalists who are just scouring the web for YouTube videos that are uploaded to very questionable YouTube channels with very questionable videos purported to depict UAP, which more often than not appear to either depict nothing of the sort or actually appear to be hoaxes, CGI, things like that. And then you've also got, like we saw a few weeks prior to the most recent wave of story non-story UFO reporting, we had, by the way, it was pointed out to me that somebody had asked if I worked for the CIA. This is what happens when we have these conversations, Jimmy. But again, we have to look at this critically. Now, a few weeks prior to all this that we're discussing, we also had some FOIA documents that were obtained by researcher Anthony Bragalia. For those who aren't familiar, he had been also one of those involved with the now infamous Roswell slides thing. Bragalia had gotten some FOIA documents. He had blogged about this at his website. Many tabloids took what he wrote and essentially unfiltered wrote it for their websites, saying that the government has admitted that it has, material retrieved, debris from UFOs. The documents said nothing of that sort. And further, what actually ended up happening, it came out a few days thereafter, because again, John Greenwald and certain others were directly involved with, going right to Bragalia and trying to find out what was going on. But if you actually sat and read the documents, it's describing known materials, nitinol being one of them. This is a metal that's used in all kind of dentistry work. A lot of people walking around out there right now, or people listening at home, actually may have nitinol in their mouth based on different kinds of dental surgeries or the use of braces or whatever else. This is a very common substance. It's not something that we only discovered, at Roswell in 1947, but it was presented as such by the media, who very uncritically looked at these FOIA documents, which were also taken out of context. It turns out that there were a batch of FOIAs that were amended thereafter, and the original FOIA that Bragalia had requested, as was presented on his website, ended up being amended so that they could break it down into several different small batch releases so he could get some of the documents more quickly. And so what was released was not necessarily directly relevant to what had been in his original FOIA request. And so taken completely out of the context that had originally been presented in, and then unfiltered and just kind of re-reported by the media, they all said, the government admits they've got UFOs. I'm sure a lot of people out there are still going, well, don't forget about just a couple of months ago. They already admitted it. Who admitted what? You got to read deeper than that, but a lot of people don't. So the issue that you're addressing, and the point that you raise, how do we get around that? We do need more responsible journalists who are willing to look at these things, but I think that we also have to be very aware of biases. The thing that concerns me a little is that many people who would look at any purported UFO or UAP, video or photograph or anything, they are immediately going to approach it with their bias. The UFO crowd is going to say this is the best evidence that we've seen since Roswell. This is on par with the 2004 Nimitz thing. Then there are those aerospace and defense guys, who are going to say, well, it must be a drone. It must be Lockheed Martin's new, stealth jet or stealth drone, whatever. How do you get around the bias in reporting? That's one of the big issues for me. Those who have already doubled down and said all of this stuff is just our own, and maybe the Pentagon's acting, like these are UFOs for various reasons. That actually could be the case. But at the present moment, I see no more definitive proof of that than I see definitive proof that these things are unequivocally exotic alien technologies, if you follow me.
I remember the days, I'll admit something to you now. It used to make me so angry when I was so frustrated with you to try to get you to, I felt that you were being too skeptical. Right, that you were just, trying to be too reasonable with everybody. Let's stop and really examine all of this. And I was just like, man, Micah, it's not the case, man. It's not the case. We need to look at and seeing you today. Now I'm like doubly frustrated. You're too.
Good. I was going to say
you're too into it. This is the thing. the media has to stop and take a look at what they are actually saying and be willing to retract. And that includes Brigalia, because he got pretty ugly. It got pretty heated between him and John Greenwald. And we don't have enough John Greenwalds in the world to police everything that goes on. John Greenwald tirelessly, and I mean this, is constantly in contact, pushing for these documents, pushing for the reality of the situation, trying to get clarification so all of us can understand. And he is constantly unwinding other people's mistakes. And that goes back to this UFO debris thing, because when this took off and ran, I remember I was watching what was going on with John and others out there fighting over this, when all you have to do is just go and read the FOIA docs and see what is being presented here. And it is not what the headlines are stating, right? Yeah. And we don't have enough of John Greenwald to police everything. Some of it goes right back on the media and those that originally make these statements. You need to go, I think you get a lot more respect if you go, hey, I didn't mean that, or I made the mistake. This is actually what is going on. That's where respect comes from. And instead of constantly sensationalizing and not willing, when you're shown the truth, to back up a little bit.
Right. Unfortunately, so much of the narrative these days is led by sensationalists. Some of the reasons for that are the fact that, you've got tabloids, especially some of the British tabloids, they frequently get linked to, popular news aggregator sites like Drudge Report. And one of the reasons why is because even if what they report is known to be overtly sensational and at times may not be necessarily credible, they are nonetheless established media outlets. They are media sources, news sources that have been around for long enough that they get the eyes. And, it's definitely frustrating for me when I see, a very talented blogger or, a researcher. Fortunately, John Greenwald does get a lot of press. He definitely does get backlinks, in a lot of the tabloids and other, mainstream media outlets that are far more reputable, in my opinion, than some of the tabloids we're talking about. But more often than not, I'll find some great analysis, that's on a person's personal website, or it's, in a format like, for instance, something that's produced by the Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies. This is an organization that I actually joined. I've never joined a UFO group, Jimmy, ever. And I joined this group, and I'll tell you why, because right now, in addition to pressure on government to try and find out what information is available, can be released, and what data exists, why it has not been released, again, I've never really been a big fan of this whole idea of disclosure, but one reason is because if it never gets released, have we wasted all our time trying to pressure Washington? And the SCU, let's make no mistake, they do their fair share of that too. I mean, we recently actually just sent a petition to Washington, and it was signed by, I think, more than 50 individuals, whose names were not all disclosed, but I'll just say that some of them. I know some of them. And these individuals were essentially saying exactly what we've been talking about with regard to, the necessity for people to be able to know at least some extent of the reality of UAP as government and as U.S. intelligence agencies have been collecting data on it. One reason being that if this information is made available to scientists, they may actually be able to help government agencies that are looking at this data. Further, it may also be of benefit to those outside of government who presently don't have access to it. I was talking with a NASA scientist, Ravi Kapamarapu, the other day, and he and his co-author of an excellent article that appeared in Scientific American last summer, Jakob Haq Misra, they have both been guys who have really begun to be what I would consider the new wave of scientists who are starting to come out and say, it's cool for scientists to take UFOs seriously and we need to do it. But Ravi, in an email to me for an article I did there at the Debrief, he had said, if scientists are going to be able to move forward on this, we need to know what government already has. But the other side of that, too, is that with all the existing data at our disposal, I really would like to see more scientists looking at some of the data we already have rather than putting so much emphasis on government and the idea of disclosure. Again, if we keep putting pressure on Washington and they never release what we need, how much time might we waste? Maybe we should actually look at what data we already have. So, these are issues too. But that kind of stuff, when you got a scientific organization that's analyzing information that they've collected for 50 years from civilian UFO investigation agencies, nobody pays attention to that. That never gets reported in the Daily Mail.
Right.
That never gets picked up by the tabloids.
Right. Doesn't get clicks. Doesn't get clicks.
Right.
Doesn't get clicks.
Some of the best information we have.
That's right. And when we look, Avi Loeb, Ravi, the scientific side of this reality, where they are looking at the data, they're looking at the numbers, and the only conclusions that they can come to is there must be a buttload of life out there. How much of it is just, one-celled, molecular life, living in acidic ponds on some remote planet? How much of it is dinosaurs, right? How much of it is advanced, interstellar traveling civilizations? The answers are there's got to be a lot of all of it. There's too many planets. The universe is simply too big. The Milky Way is huge. And going back to your point, also on the Debrief was this excellent article by Tim McMillan, which was back on April 21st, and today is the 27th. So it came out a week ago with a pretty incredible headline, which is Alien Artifacts on Earth and Our Solar System is Possible, NASA Reports. Now, this is an article that is based on a 2018 report by the United States NASA Space Administration, shows the length America's premier space agency is willing to consider when proving the existence of intelligent alien life. This is exactly what you're talking about, right? This is actually going on. The point that I'm trying to make here is not only the Debrief is pursuing this, and so are you. I'm talking about Tim McMillan, that science is talking about this. The Navy's talking about it. Marco Rubio is talking about it. We've got everything happening at the same time with the UFO subject in the media. Tucker Carlson. Ultimately, the question is why? What do you think is going on?
Why and what do I think is going on? Well, again, it's the flavor of the month, because after 2017, when this made big headlines, leading the charge being the New York Times, but keep in mind we also had the Washington Post and Politico almost simultaneously, breaking the story about the Pentagon's ATIP program, Lou Elizondo, and of course, his teaming up at that time with Chris Mellon, the guys, at that time, the formation, of course, was To the Stars. Since Lou and Chris having left, of course, that organization, now they are free agents essentially. But that's why, because people began to all of a sudden say, hey, if the government's looking at it, then it must be important. But here again, that brings us back to that bias that I was talking about earlier. Another of the biases is that people don't assign importance to the subject unless they can associate it with the military, which I think is both warranted and unwarranted. Let's first look at why it's warranted. Of course, it's warranted because when we have military servicemen and women who are saying they're seeing these things, when technology is being utilized by military bodies like the Navy, and again, the Raytheon targeting pod, the ATFLIR system, when the most sophisticated tracking system, probably in use by the military at the time of that incident, maybe still today, in truth, in a lot of ways, is what is capturing the footage of these objects, and the Pentagon, after review of the data, doesn't find any information in those videos to be anything that they say shouldn't be released, i.e. that, conveys anything that the public or our enemies shouldn't know about our technology. But they also say that whatever the objects are in the videos they can't identify. That's certainly interesting. It does bring a different level of both excitement and also, I think, concern in a lot of ways to the debate, because people are looking at it now and saying, okay, those who are sworn to protect us and our nation, to defend us against, threats, foreign and domestic, they are saying that they are observing these things. They are saying they can identify them. That is a big deal for people. That is fundamentally, to answer your question, why people are talking about this right now. But the other side of this, the unwarranted side, I worry a little that UFO enthusiasts have now come to the conclusion that if it's of significance, it has to be obtained via FOIA. It has to be something a government official has said. And as we saw again in April of last year, when the Pentagon actually came out and acknowledged the existence of these videos, that was far less significant in terms of the media reaction to it and the general public's reaction than when videos and photos and documents and things are leaked or obtained by civilian researchers. So part of the bias, and the strange bias to me, is that people want to see information that has been illegally obtained or which has been leaked to the public or which civilians have obtained by pressuring government. When the government comes out and says it, it's not as impactful as when people have obtained it through other means. That's kind of interesting to me, and that really says one thing, that part of the fascination that we have with the government's involvement in all this really has less to do with what the government actually says. It has everything, in my opinion, to do with the way that people obtain that information from government, which is also in its own way very sensational. I would like to see us move away from some of that sensational, we got to sneak it out of the government's hands and pull it out of the National Archives or whatever, or have some deep throat bring it to us, and leak these documents. I'd love to be able to see scientists and civilians and government start to say, okay, let's just acknowledge what we're dealing with. Let's try to put the data that we have out on the table. Let's try to do a reasonable, responsible, non-sensational analysis, and let's try to figure out what this really means for humankind and, more broadly, life throughout the universe, maybe, if indeed these things represent extraterrestrials.
Well, now what do we do, to your point, today the UFO enthusiast equate UAP automatically with aliens, with extraterrestrial intelligence, not of this Earth origin, that's what UAP means. And any mention of UAP from, the Navy said UAPs are real, however you want to frame that, the UFO researchers and enthusiasts out there now equate that automatically with aliens and references to extraterrestrial intelligence from Zeta Reticuli. Yeah. How do we get away from that? Yes.
They have for a long time. Again, we have to understand the history, I think. You go all the way back to the famous Sign era estimate of the situation. Famous, arguably one of the most famous UFO documents to have actually never been seen by civilian UFO researchers, because all copies were ordered to be destroyed. And the reason why is because top brass didn't like the conclusions that were drawn in that document. They essentially said, look, our review of the current data indicates that we have no intelligence that clearly identifies these as being something belonging to the Soviets, some sort of a captured German technology that the Soviets have begun to exploit after the war. There's certainly nothing that equates this to any secret technologies being developed here stateside. We can't identify any state actor on Earth that might possess technology capable of what is being reported. Therefore, we are open to the possibility that these appear to be extraterrestrial. Well, the military didn't want to hear that, and that's what led to the famous destruction of the so-called estimate of the situation. And we only know about it through secondhand source material like Edward Rupelt's recollections. He even described what it looked like in his book, The Report on Unidentified Flying Objects. But I bring that up because, again, that may be one of the earliest official documents, which, although we can't see it, those who read it said, it came to the conclusion, essentially, that UFOs being extraterrestrial seems like a likely conclusion. I have often kind of intellectually and otherwise pushed back on the whole UFOs equal ET thing. And one of the reasons that we have to is because we cannot state that even the most exotic UFOs, and again, I have to say, a lot of what we've been talking about tonight, a lot of this stuff that's recently in the news, a lot of these leaked photographs and videos and things, very well may, if they are not simple prosaic things like Batman balloons or whatever, blimps, what have you, some of these things in these photographs and videos, they may indeed be some kind of technology that is not recognized by the public. That is certainly possible. But the fact that it is not recognized by the public, Jimmy, doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't belong to our government. And I actually think a lot of these things might be stuff of our own making, technologies of our own development. There's also that more concerning possibility that they could belong to the enemy.
Let me take a break right here. I got to do that. You're a radio professional. You know what's going on. I got to take a break, man. I got to pay the bills. Our guest tonight is Micah Hanks. We'll continue this conversation when we come back after this short break. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Stay with us.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Why is it we're not very good with our health regimen until it's too late? We don't put oil in the car until the engine blows up. When the body's out of balance, your health is not so good. Give your body some love. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Try our Life Change Tea, which cleanses you from harmful intruders. A clean colon is one of the ways to bring the body in balance. We also carry organic supplements to help you get where you need to go. So do your body a favor. Log on to GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. You can even visit our sales page to save some dough. Does anybody call money dough anymore? Anyway, if you're looking for short, helpful health tips, go to YouTube and punch in Health Matters Now. That's Health Matters Now. So, log on to GetTheT.com, shop, get balanced, then learn some cool tips at Health Matters Now. You'll be glad you did. That's GetTheT.com.
Your contact for current news and trending topics. KGRARadio.com.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I only drink Fade to Black blend coffee from Rivermoon. Just click on the Rivermoon Coffee banner at jimmychurchradio.com. Promo code F2B Blend.
This is the only way forward.
This is Fade to Black. Make contact. KGRARadio.com.
When you're in the house for longer periods of time, you can see them flying or running across the floor. Ooh, yuck. They're unhealthy, gross, and disgusting. Bugs. I loathe bugs. We keep a clean home, but occasionally bugs show up. Well, I found something that is tougher than bugs. Orange Guard. On contact, it kills hidden bugs, including ants, roaches, and fleas. Plus, Orange Guard is a residual repellent. All of the ingredients of Orange Guard are on the FDA generally recognized as safe list. Orange Guard may be used around food, humans, and pets. It comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Orange Guard, available at orangeguard.com, Whole Foods, and Ace Hardware.
Gold loves chaos, uncertainty, and disarray. History shows us what gold does when people aren't sure about the government, the stock market, their jobs, or their retirement savings. Our national debt is skyrocketing. Gold and other precious metals are a defense measure against inflation and a stock market that might take years to recover. So what can you do right now to protect yourself? Call United Gold Group. We offer gold and other precious metals delivered securely within 72 hours. Are you worried about the stock market? We can also help you set up a real gold or silver IRA or a 401k. Safe and secure. United Gold Group makes gold ownership affordable. Call now and get up to $2,500 in free gold or silver with a qualified IRA. Call 800-753-8534. That's 800-753-8534 or visit UnitedGoldGroup.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. I guess not Micah Hanks, but one of the great things about doing a live radio show like this, you never know who's listening. And Micah was just talking before the break about some of these objects may be ours. I think they may be spying on us. And then Alex Jones is now on the line. He just called in, and Alex, I understand what is going on with Micah and suggesting that some of this reported UFO stuff that's in the media right now may be ours and may be spying on us. What do you think is actually going on?
Jimmy, let me just interrupt you right there, okay? I've been following this for 20 years, okay? Actually, 20 years longer than everybody else has been following this. I was the first guy down there in Austin, Texas, saying that this actually was our own stuff, okay? People laugh about that. All the kind of things that our military actually does that we don't know about. But I've been talking about it for 20 years, all right? You know this. You've been at my house. You've been drinking whiskey. Apple juice, I mean. You know, drinking apple juice there in the next to the fire. But anyway, I've been saying these things were our own stuff for a long time. But now they could be aliens. They could be interdimensionals. Reptilians, perhaps. It's possible.
Why would the government...
Hold on, wait. They might actually belong to the Zeta Reticulans.
But why would they be spying on us? Are they spying on me? Are they spying on you? How are they getting it done?
Jimmy, I think that's as much Alex as you get tonight. If you want to have Micah Hanks for the rest of your show, then that's all the Alex you get.
But I gotta tell you, I remember this was many years ago, and we did this. I got email, dude, for like 2 weeks. People thought it was Alex Jones, and it was negative. The email was negative because they thought it was Alex, and they were believing the shtick. I thought that was so funny. You do a great Alex, man. You do a great Alex. I wish everybody could see what I was seeing right there. Everything that Alex does when he goes off, the veins, right? The veins in his it's all happening with you. The veins are just exploding out of it. That was well done, man. That was well done. That was not Alex Jones, everybody. That was Micah Hanks. Save your email.
It still tickles me that somebody actually thought that Alex Jones called into your show and that it was actually him. Oh, man. Yeah.
Oh, man. You did this whole thing last time. I got to get back on the subject, maybe hours, but you did this whole thing about spying on us with our light bulbs, right?
Yeah.
Right. And you probably remember that. And I got emails. Yeah, man, they're doing it, man. Yeah, light bulbs. I was like, no, dude, it was a joke. Yeah. We were just having fun.
Yeah, you know, but
God,
here's
that
the
was
thing.
funny. You are so funny.
Now it's probably true. Now they probably are spying on us through our light bulbs.
I know. Oh, man. Now going back to what if, and this is a big what if, but the UAP task force report that you were speaking about earlier, now the date is 24th, 25th. I hope it doesn't get pushed back. I hope it's there. But there is a big chunk of this community and around the world that are expecting a whole lot to come out with this. And I had said the other day, again, equating UAPs with UFOs. I even make that same mistake. And I had said over the weekend, I was on a podcast. I was on a live stream with Richard Dolan and Christina Gomez.
Yes.
Was part of it. Anyway, and I had said there's not going to be anything about UAPs in this report. Well, what I meant to say was I shouldn't have said UAPs because everybody's so acclimated to that term these days. I should have said aliens. All right, there's not going to be anything about aliens in this report. There are many that think that the disclosure is going to happen this June. Very dangerous zone. What do you think the component is going to be in this? If it is like these videos and these leaked documents and the leaked images, the Batman balloon, if that's what is going to be in this report, then the report is going to be drone related. That's what I think.
I'm still imagining my response in Alex Jones's voice. That's what's making this difficult for me, Jimmy. But anyway, there's a very good chance. A lot of people are wondering if there's not going to be one of those good old-fashioned bait and switches where there's all this talk about the Navy investigating things, the Navy looking into what they term UAP, the possible attempt at rebranding UFOs as UAP, and then all of a sudden, look at all these drones we've been studying. Now, I was on a show recently where the host had actually said, I don't think that this term threat is a good thing to use in relation to these objects because there doesn't appear to be any kind of a distinctive threat that they represent or any real evidence that they are threatening. And, of course, this basically being a reference to the Advanced Aerospace Threat and Identification Program, right? ATIP. But as we would have to point out again, and I have done many times, the whole thing about the ATIP program and the fact that it entailed possible aerial threats does seem to indicate that, first, ATIP wasn't a UFO program. It wasn't just looking at UFOs. It was looking at, again, potential threats. But under that umbrella, UFOs appear. All right, so it would not be a stretch to say that the UAP task force is essentially doing the same thing, that it is looking at a variety of different potential aerial threats. In fact, I'm sure that is exactly what it's doing. But see, the UFO people, you mentioned there being like a distinction and mistaking UAP for UFO and vice versa. Let's be clear. UFOs, as they have always been referred to, and that's, and since the first introduction of that, that term by Ruppelt back in the 50s, and the idea of UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, they are essentially the same. Because
it's the same three words, unidentified flying object, and I get that. What I am concerned with is UAPs or UFOs or UAPs being immediately extraterrestrial.
Sure, right. I know, but again, what you're asking about the UAP task force, what it's looking at and what it may release. No, I don't think that they are probably going to release information about, even exotic UFOs or UAP as we would term it. They could release some data about, some aerial phenomena that cannot be identified. But again, that seems to be, and I'm reading between the lines based on what Marco Rubio has said.
Right.
In recent days, when he's been asked about this, he has said, look, I doubt that this report is going to necessarily draw conclusions about what this stuff may represent. But if there's anything that they do make conclusions about, it will in almost any case where they give us any definitive answers about anything that they have been looking at, the task force, it will involve drones because those will probably be the only kinds of quote-unquote UAP, if we can even call those that they will be able to identify. The rest of it is going to remain indistinct. It could be any number of things, and I think that will be no different than past attempts by the military to identify UFOs. We thought of that.
I don't know if you caught Marco Rubio being questioned by a TMZ guy in an airport. This was a couple of weeks ago. And I got to say that the TMZ guy pushed the extraterrestrial alien flying saucer issue directly at Rubio, probably 3 or 4 times.
He did,
and you saw what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
Now, I'm gonna give Rubio props. He went there. He went there. He went ET a couple. He was leaning ET. And that was fascinating to me because I don't think I've ever heard a sitting U.S. senator go that far. And that's the second time that Rubio has done this over the last year, where he has gone little green men. He has actually addressed it.
When he has been asked about it.
Pushed.
Yeah, and that guy was pushing. But again, let's also be clear, the TMZ reporter who just, based on what we saw in the video, it appears that he randomly ran into Rubio in an airport, it looks like, and he just goes up and approaches him. And Rubio, seems to be a pretty nice guy. He will stop and he will talk to people, as evidenced by that video, and he actually gives this guy 5 minutes of his day without,
he does.
So that was kind of cool of him. And yeah, he did go there when pushed about it. But, the TMZ reporter also didn't seem to have a very comprehensive knowledge of the nuances of UAP, UFOs, what these things may be, what they certainly are not, and what, our best evidence indicates that they might be. No, he's just saying, do you think that they're going to release the alien files? Are we going to get information? And so Rubio had to work with what he was given. And in that instance, he was given very little from the TMZ guy. Sorry. But, in response to that reporter's questions, yeah, he absolutely did say, I'm not saying that these things are necessarily aliens. If they are, I would hope that they're friendly. But again, if these things, and we can't identify them, and they are over our military installations, and he seems to be not only referencing, he may be referencing more recent instances, which is very compelling, but he seems to be talking about the long history of UFO sightings around military installations. We got to think, back to, Minot, the Minot incident, and certain others also. Throughout the 1970s, there were documents that were released, I think, from it was the National Military Command Center, I think, but they didn't have UFOs in the documents. They referred to these things as mystery helicopters in these documents, and a really great book that talks about that, and really outlining the research of the first researchers who actually obtained those documents using Freedom of Information Act requests. It was Larry Fawcett and Barry Greenwood in their book. It was first called Clear Intent, but then it was later re-released as the UFO Cover-Up. Mm-hmm. And they outline all of these very concerning military base incidents where these objects show up. They didn't know what to call them, so they call them mystery helicopters. But these things, they said, were able to outfox any of their aircraft, but they could hover, and hence why they called them helicopters. Their lights would go out. They would go out there to intercept, and then they wouldn't be able to find them. And then the planes would go back to base, and the thing would be there again. So these kinds of incidents seem to be, maybe not that specifically, but those very kinds of incidents are what Rubio appears to be alluding to. And he's saying if these things are in our airspace over our military facilities, highly sensitive, restricted areas and airspace, and yet these things seem to come and go as they please, we should be looking at this, and we should want to know what this actually represents. But again, coming back to the threat thing, the T word, I don't think that they necessarily represent a threat or that there's information that they do, but the threat potential, of course, is inherent by virtue of the way that they can just come and go like they please, and seemingly as though or as if to say, look, whatever you've got, the best you have, it ain't nothing compared to what we got.
Is the threat narrative the only way to get the attention of the Senate?
It might be, in truth. Again, I think that the threat narrative has to do with programs like ATIP and the fact that they were more broadly looking at a variety of different potential aerial threats, unidentified aerial threats, some of which, maybe even just a minority, could represent what we would traditionally refer to as UFOs within the context of what you or I would mean, or our listeners here, when we talk about UFOs, right? But they're also looking at potential technologies being developed by adversary nations like Russia, China, potential, even possible domestic threats. Who knows? I mean, a variety of different things, aerial phenomena that might be natural that could nonetheless be a danger or a disruption to military activities. Any number of things that could be a potential threat were probably being looked at. I think that's where the threat thing comes from. But to your point, is the best way to actually get lawmakers.
Right.
Yeah, how do we get lawmakers to take this seriously? Yes, we have to, I think, at times push the potential threat. And again, the obvious threat potential inherent to the behavior of UAP or UFOs over the years and their activities over military bases may be the very best way to do that. But I actually think that that is a threat potential. I mean, these things, whatever these things are, they have very little regard for our most sensitive installations and our most developed weapon systems.
I don't see that as a threat, but we can agree to disagree on that point. But let's take it a step further, Micah. If Lou Elizondo, the alleged head of ATIP, that's a whole nother show, but let's say Lou is presenting in front of Congress in the Senate. He's on Capitol Hill, and he says, hey, look, they're coming and going as they please, but they don't pose a threat. They haven't shot anything down. There's nothing aggressive. There is no threat to us that we can report to you. Then the whole situation stops right there in its tracks, right? The Senate doesn't want to hear that. The Senate's not going to want to hear, what do you mean? I'm just saying they've got peaceful intentions. They come and go as they please, but they're cool. Well, the Senate's not going to want to hear that.
Well, maybe they would actually. They probably don't want to be told, guys, potentially the most grave threat that humanity has ever faced, a possible invasion by an intelligence with technology that far surpasses our best weapons. That's probably what we're dealing with. I doubt the Senate's going to go, oh, good, tell me more. They're going to probably be like, oh, great, okay, now tell me more. They probably do want to hear that there is no threat, but again, the most efficient way to get their attention is to present a potential threat. And actually, if we're talking about Lou Elizondo, based on my interactions with him, I think that Lou would convey to Senate that, we need to treat this as a threat potential, but there doesn't appear to be any overt threat indicated. I'm sure he would say that.
Now, I want to, can I get you for overtime? Can you stay for overtime tonight?
Do we have to do this? All right, fine.
Well, and I'm going to tell you why in just a second. I am going to...
He's standing right behind me, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. He's right there. I am going to drop something into an image for you to check out. Let me pull it up. I'm moving things around on my drives here really quick. Okay, and I think this is it.
Use the encrypted channel.
And see, this is the thing. I'm normally more professional and more prepared than this, but let me see if this is the right. Yes, this is the right image. Okay, let me look at the clock. Yeah, we're going to discuss this for the rest of the show. Let me drop this in here.
Uh-oh.
And there you go. I want you to open up that image.
Okay. Is it in the encrypted channel? I'm still waiting on it.
Oh, man. Jeez.
Okay.
Okay. I want you to open that up. Don't say anything just yet. But let me give you the background. Do you know what you're looking at?
I think I have a pretty good idea.
No. Do you know the provenance of this image as it happened this weekend?
Oh, no, I don't, actually.
Okay. All right. On Sunday, Dr. Stephen Greer did a live stream. And this image is up in our Twitter feed right now. I am going to make sure that everybody sees this. I'm going to do a quick retweet. I want to thank, I believe this was posted up by Awakening Man, Eric. And now, okay, so here it is here. Okay, let me retweet this so everybody can see this. Okay, this is the image that images. Hold on. These are the, geez, man. These are, okay. See, and this is, I love doing this live on the air, everybody, that we are talking about. Okay. And, okay, so Greer, as you look at these images, Greer released the one on the left. Okay, the white image, I should say. Now, he had suggested that this is a photograph of a photograph. First off, this isn't the original, number one. Number two, he was thinking that the image was taken around 1920. He's had several people look at it, and it's the medical equipment, it's the stuff, and the thing, and that, and the clothes, 1920. All right? Now, this, and it's always danger zone. You brought up the Roswell slide, right? You don't, man, if you're going to go and do this, right, and there's a lot of smart people out there, not only in the world, but certainly in the world of ufology, that are going to be able to pick this apart and do it very quickly. The image on the right was just released today. Some internet sleuths pulled this up, and now you can see another image. Now you can see the symbols that are written on everybody here, where they're identifying the different gentlemen in the photograph that appear in both photographs, right? So you see what's going on there, Micah?
I do, yes.
You see the green dot, you see the right, and and it appears to be the same group of guys. Now, going with the picture on the left, I'm not so sure that this is 1920. If you go to the picture on the right, I'm going with the OK Corral. That kind of looks like Doc Holliday in that picture. But I think that the picture may be much older than what he was thinking in 1920. But I want you to take a look at these images and tell me what you may think you may or may not be seeing in this. Do you think that that looks like an alien body?
So these are always a nice Rorschach test, because anytime you go looking for something that you want to see, you will tend to see it. The photographs look to me like an autopsy being performed, yes, but not an alien autopsy. And in fact, the simplest and most likely explanation, which is usually what a good skeptic would want to go toward, would be that they appear to be a human body, both in the left image, although you can't make out the details of the human body as well in that image. But then the one on the right, unequivocally, that looks like a human being who, again, it's...
Had a bad day. Had a very bad day.
Let's say had a very bad day, but yeah, unequivocally human. I wouldn't be so certain necessarily. I mean, there are definitely a lot of similarities, especially in terms of the clothing worn by both parties. But again, some of the facial hair and other characteristics don't appear to be perfect matches. I'll tell you how usually these days, how internet sleuths are able to find these kind of things. That wonderful little and so seldom used little trick that Google provides called Google Image Search, where you can literally right-click on a image and just say, show me, or do a Google image search for this image, and, it will actually pull up and populate similar images that appear online. So it's actually easy to find similar images like these. In my opinion, though, I don't see anything about this that makes it anything any more extraordinary than a period photograph of a autopsy of some kind.
It's a very. I want you to look at it more during the break, and we're going to come back and talk about this. There seems to be, if you look at the image on the right, and now I'm just seeing this for the first time, everybody. So, like everybody else, but the leg looks like there's three sections to the leg. There's another part of the leg that's hanging down almost to the floor. I don't think that's his foot, and if that's his foot is a size 32. That is pretty interesting. But there also looks like there's a lot of biological debris tied to this. Could be seaweed. Look at the top of the table over on the right, and look at the debris that's hanging off of the table. It looks like it could be seaweed or something like that. Maybe that's what's hanging off of the hands. Do you see that? See the hand that's coming off of the table? There's some weird debris there. The guy on the right looks like Mike Ricksecker, who we had on the show last night. I think that is a Mandela effect, man. I think Mike Ricksecker is a time traveler. But now, if you go back, these look like the same guys in both photographs. But if you go back to the other photograph where they're cleaner dressed and things, that's not the same person or same body that's on the table. The one that's on the table on the right, that's a skeleton. The one on the left still has muscle tissue. It doesn't look like it has a whole lot of skin, but there is muscle tissue, and it's not a skeleton like the body on the right.
Right. Yeah, it certainly looks like these could be the same individuals. The individuals, it does not necessarily look like the two photographs were taken at the same time. And like you're saying, it looks like a more traditional autopsy on the left, whereas it looks like human skeletal remains on the right. But in either case, I would have to say it's human. Now, again, give me some context here if you can. Did Dr. Greer come online and say that this is a purported alien autopsy photograph?
No, he did not. He merely stated to everybody he wants everybody to look at this and let's do some research and see if we can identify the gentleman in the photograph. Remember, his was the image on the left. That was Dr. Greer's presentation yesterday. The image on the right was pulled up off of the net today. So that's it. No, he never said, I don't believe he said, this is alien. No. I don't think anybody could go that far. I don't think, after the Roswell slides, I think anybody would be reticent to go there.
Well, they should be, of course, and that being a very tragic incident on a lot of different levels. One being, of course, the fact that we are actually looking, in the case of the Roswell slides, at the mummified remains of a indigenous American child.
Right.
Which at the time had actually been on display in a museum. I don't think that those, probably under the NAGPRA Act, those were repatriated and would no longer be available for public viewing due to the sensitivity of that issue. And so that's one of the problems when people pull up these archival photographs that actually may depict human remains and in some cases indigenous American remains, and they're taken out of that context. It is a very sad situation for more reasons than one. But of course, one of those also is the fact that it doesn't make UFO researchers who promote these ideas look very good for promoting these kind of things. And so I have to ask, if Dr. Greer was not saying that this was an alien autopsy, why was he bringing attention to the photo and saying we should be researching it? It seems hard for me to imagine why else he would be saying, let's look at this.
Yeah, I don't know. Let's take a break right here. This is Fade to Black. What I had said yesterday, Micah, was there were a couple of interesting aspects to this image. One, the feet look like 3 toes. That's the image on the left. I blew it up and looked at it. I don't see anything ET about it except for maybe that. There's nothing pointing me in one direction or the other. I think it's human. Let's take our break right here. Our guest tonight, Micah Hanks. We're going into overtime. Stay right there.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
This is Jimmy Church of Fade to Black, and I take Life Change Tea supplements every single day. It's what I do. Click on their banner at jimmychurchradio.com. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today.
This is Billy Carson with ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. Forbidden Knowledge TV has just reached its 1-year anniversary. That's right, 1 year. And as a show of appreciation, we are giving all new subscribers a free 30-day trial of ForbiddenKnowledge.tv. That's 30 days to binge watch thousands of movies, documentaries, conferences, workshops, lectures, yoga classes, meditation courses, and so much more. So log on to ForbiddenKnowledge.tv from your computer or mobile device, or get the Forbidden Knowledge TV app on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon, iTunes, or Google Play today, and use coupon code 30daysfree. That's coupon code 30 days free on ForbiddenKnowledge.tv today.
you intrigued by paranormal talk radio? You'll love the new paranormal radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Our guest tonight, Micah Hanks. Micah Hanks of the Grayling Report. Oh! The Micah Hanks Show. Hey, Micah, what nights do you do your show?
Well, Monday nights are when the show actually airs, but these days, a lot of the time, because of my crazy schedule, you got to keep in mind I'm doing 4 podcasts now. So it can be kind of all over the place. But the show airs on Mondays on KGRA, but that is one of several programs that I produce right now. And the one I have to admit that I'm having so much fun with these days is Sasquatch Tracks. It's Dakota Waddell and Jeff Smith and we interview mostly scientists and field researchers who are applying science towards Sasquatch. If it's civilian, field researchers, they are doing what we would term citizen science. I really think that there could be more of that applied toward UFOs too, but really I think that that's a fun concept, how the average Joe can get involved in applying science toward potentially anomalous subjects. So anyway, lots of podcasts.
Actually, I want to stay right there, and this is overtime, so I like to get a little loose. I try to have some fun. And Sasquatch is a great subject. What side of the fence are you on when it comes to Bigfoot and Sasquatch?
I'm so glad you asked, because I wondered how I could steer the conversation in that way, and it was easier than I ever expected. As far as Sasquatch goes, here's my take on this, okay? I am very open to the possibility that these creatures actually do exist or did exist. However, I also do not perceive Sasquatch as this great big mythical hairy ape kind of thing. I see that if these creatures exist as being no different from other known creatures in the paleoanthropological record, like Gigantopithecus. When people say, well, this thing isn't in the fossil record, therefore it couldn't exist, there are a lot of problems with that argument. But again, proponents have said for years, Gigantopithecus, this Asian megafaunal ape that existed as recently as the last ice age, is absolutely known in the fossil record. Now, the other thing, too, is that you'll often hear skeptics say this about Sasquatch. They'll say people believe, and those believers are die-hard, even though the story of Bigfoot is based in a hoax that occurred in 1958 in Bluff Creek, California. Now, here's the deal. Yes, Ray Wallace was part of a hoax that actually didn't begin in 1958. There were reports of big footprints turning up at job sites out in Northern California, I think for a year before that. And in fact, Ray Wallace's family came out later and said, yeah, our dad did that, but he also had been overheard as early as the 1960s talking about this, and a woman had actually contacted researcher Ivan Sanderson and said, Wallace and his brothers, they used to stay at my hotel. They'd sit right outside the window. They were very fond of drinking beer at night, and they talked about hoaxing those footprints. So a lot of researchers were very, skeptical of his story early on. What many skeptics today fail to pick up on is the fact that, there were, of course, descriptions of creatures that we would identify as Sasquatch today well before that. There was a book written a few years ago called Abominable Science by Daniel Loxton and Donald Prothero. And, there's some good things in that book. But again, this is one of those places, Jimmy, where I have to absolutely disagree with the skeptics, because Daniel Loxton in his chapter on Bigfoot says, first of all, the hoax begins in 58, and the earliest report that we can find of anything that resembled an ape-like creature only appears in 1955. Of all places, it's a location called Micah Mountain, okay, where a hunter named William Rowe said that he observed a female Sasquatch. But he says, as far as I can tell, no one even knows what William Rowe looked like. We aren't even sure if this article was ever published in the province, like some researchers say that it was. We don't even know if this guy really existed. The only person that seems to have ever talked to him was John Green. Well, so in the book, they say they can't find the article that appeared in the British Columbian province newspaper that told the story, even though John Kirk, a researcher, told them it was probably in the province. Well, I mean, it took me about 10 minutes on newspapers.com to find the article. There's a photo of William Rowe in the article, so yes, we know what he looks like, and I've found other photographs of him since then. And the problem, of course, is that they say this is the earliest description of a so-called ape-like creature that ever appears in print, and that's not true at all.
No.
In fact, John Green, in the very same book that the authors of Abominable Science reference, John Green describes a 1941 incident, of course, this a very famous incident also involving Sasquatch, which explicitly describes a large, hair-covered creature. They try to say that the earlier descriptions of Sasquatch described by the Canadian, well, actually, he was a government agent who lived among the, I guess it was the Harrison Hot Springs area, I believe. But anyway, he was a Irish American Canadian at the time, writing for Canadian newspapers, J.W. Burns, who introduces the word Sasquatch into the lexicon in 1929. They try to say that he was describing large Native Americans. You go back and you read the article from 29, and there are indeed descriptions of the large ape-like creature covered in hair like a bear. So, unfortunately, those who have said that this is a modern phenomenon that begins in the 50s, they really haven't read deeply enough. And if you go back, you can go back, in fact, further than J.W. Burns in 1929. 1924, we had the Ape Canyon incident, explicit descriptions of 7-foot-tall ape men seen at Mount St. Helens. So I think that there's a lot more historical data that supports the idea that there is something to this. The confusion seems to be that people see Bigfoot and Sasquatch as different things, and then everything before that's just folklore. But there's a whole heck of a lot of folklore in the United States going back to at least the 19th century, probably earlier, and I've read the majority of it that I could find, that describes unequivocally large ape-like creatures. So I think that you have to look at that history and say, come on, maybe there's more than just a hoax that started in 58.
I'm checking out the etymology of Sasquatch, and they're going native. Okay, it's I
could tell you, and in fact,
Halcomelon.
Halcomelon, yeah, it's
right?
a Halcomelon term. Saskets probably would be what it was. We don't know exactly. That would probably be where J.W. Burns first came across the idea, and then he anglicizes that. And when he goes to print with this in 1929, he uses Sasquatch. But again, this being a term that is etymologically similar to other things that we see in that region of the world.
Mm-hmm. Pacific Northwest. Yes.
My friend Haffa the other night, she pointed out to me, she may be listening right now, in fact, hello down there. Well, hello there, but she pointed out again, you think about Saskatchewan. I mean, there are obviously words that are very similar to Sasquatch, and that, of course, a name borrowed from a river in that region. So he may have combined words that he was familiar with, but yes, we believe that the word for the creature Sasquatch that is most similar is that Halcomelum root word that he anglicized. And that was the first iteration that we know of in popular usage where an actual name was given to these things. But there were others that were used before that appeared in print. Again, we could do a whole show about this sometime, man, because I'm telling you, I could take you down the rabbit hole on this subject.
No, I want to go down the rabbit hole. I enjoy this subject. I have always been on the fence, and my objections to it, I don't want to get into details and blow a lot of wind here, but I'm feeling today different than I did in the past. I'm not so sure that it is like the panda and just hiding out and we have to go out and fight, and certainly pandas were rediscovered and shown to be real, and I get that. I understand the comparisons, but I'm going interdimensional. Mike, listen.
No, go ahead. Tell me.
There's a reason why we haven't hit one with a car. There's a reason why. Look, I almost hit a deer the other day. Ran out in front of my Jeep, right? That happens. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen a Sasquatch run out in front of my car and try to avoid me or anybody else. That has not happened. We hit moose, elk, deer, bears, squirrels, feral cats. It doesn't matter. That kind of stuff happens all the time. Why hasn't that happened? That was always my concern. Where are the bones? Where are the bodies? Where's this? Oh, they bury them. Okay, well, how come we haven't found a Sasquatch grave? Right? We find human graves all the time. I don't understand that part unless we bring in something like the possibility of this being interdimensional. Yeah. That I'm more okay with that than something that is hiding out in the woods and avoiding humans.
So you actually make some very good points. And I also want to be clear, when I laughed when you said that, I'm not disparaging people who actually entertain this theory. I'm not laughing at alternative hypotheses, very open-minded conjectures at all. I'm only laughing at Jimmy Church. That you're who I'm laughing at.
Fair enough. But I'm okay with going there. It's crazy. Stop it. Stop laughing at me.
I'm sorry.
Though? But I'm being serious for a second.
I know you are, and you raise some very good points. We have to be able to account for the lack of physical evidence, and that is a real problem. Now, paranormalists, although I am actually, all kidding aside, again, we're being serious now. I am not in the paranormal camp on this. I contend that if they exist, we need to deal with the likelihood that first and foremost, they are probably a flesh and blood reality. If they exist, they are a species. They are like any other animal on Earth. But now here's the thing. The paranormalists, we have to understand why they present the alternative hypotheses, which is exactly like you outlined, Jimmy. If we haven't got any physical evidence, but people continue to say that they see these things, might there be some other reason that we lack that physical evidence? Now, the hardcore skeptic would say it's very simple why we don't have the evidence, because the creatures don't exist. So I'm really actually somewhere more in the middle, although I would still put that in the biological camp. I'm skeptical enough that I don't want to go full-blown paranormal, interdimensional, species here. But I also disagree with the idea that the absence of evidence is, as the saying goes, evidence of absence, right? Mm-hmm. I have to say that we need to, like you're saying, understand why there is so little physical data. If there's more physical data than the average scientist, and skeptic would contend that there is, then we need to understand why they aren't paying attention to it. If there is as little evidence as there appears to be, we need to understand why that is the case and how these creatures evade humans like they do, unlike any other animal species, like you're saying.
If the UFO community, if TTSA had a piece of footage that was as conclusive as the Patterson-Gimlin film, it would be UFO case closed. We'd be right there, and TTSA would still be around. But that being said, that makes me a walking hypocrite. And I get that too, because the Patterson-Gimlin film blows my mind. I have analyzed it just like everybody else, frame by frame, and just looking at it. And I go back and think about Planet of the Apes, which was done in the late 60s, and that was the best that Hollywood could do, right? And then you look at the Patterson-Gimlin film, and that looks real to me. I think that is a real piece of footage. I do.
I do too. And I used to be much more skeptical about it because I had read John Napier's analysis.
I remember that. Yep.
You remember? Yeah, I used to really kind of say, but I had not said at that time, let me be clear, I had not said, I think that this is a hoax. I had said, based on what primatologists have to say about the subject of the film, I can't necessarily endorse it as being a real, actual species, an actual creature. And there's not enough data, therefore, in the footage to convince primatologists. So I had to say, we will have to put this footage aside and just say, look, it's never going to be the smoking gun. But, in more recent years, having done those analyses like you're talking about, having more importantly read analyses produced by, again, there have been Hollywood special effects, experts like, Bill Munns. There is that fantastic Photech report from the late 1990s where photometric analysis of the subject, at the time state of the art, photographic enhancement, size comparisons, all kinds of other things were done. I read the Photech report by Glickman. I also have talked with pretty extensively Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum about that footage. And I have to say that after further review of all the data, I now no longer just say that, well, that photo will never really be able to prove anything. I now am of the mind that whatever is in that film could not have easily been hoaxed by Patterson and Gimlin. And even if it doesn't seem to fit what the expectations, and this is key, what the expectations of primatologists would contend a creature like that should look like, it nonetheless, to me, appears to be something other than a guy in a suit, based on the musculature, based on the size, the movement, and also certain behavioral characteristics. I even think about things like the albedo of the hands and the feet. Again, the actual reflectiveness of the light off of the hands and the feet as can be seen in the film. Now, Dr. Meldrum would say the color of the feet is the exact same color of the sand there on Bluff Creek. And I would say, well, sure, point taken. But the film is slightly overexposed, and we can't be entirely certain that there is a perfect similarity in the color. My question actually had to do with melanocyte distribution on the hands and the feet. And I raise this point because, again, you often see, even with extant ape species, non-human apes, right, gorillas, chimpanzees, and whatnot, that they may have darker skin pigmentation on their face and other parts of their body, but the palms of their hands and the soles of their feet are lighter. And the reason for this is because in primates, the melanocyte distribution is the least in that region of the body. Now, when Patty lifts her foot, and you can see the bottom of her foot, and in at least a few instances when you can see her hands, there appears to be a lighter color. And so I said to Dr. Meldrum, respectfully, maybe it's not just sand from Bluff Creek sticking to the bottom of her foot that we're seeing. Maybe what we're seeing is actual lighter skin color, which would completely match what we would expect with various primates. But another point, too, about the feet. Look, people always talk about the film. The other thing about the film we have to remember is that the subject left a track line that was clearly visible in the sand at Bluff Creek. Roger Patterson made castings there at the scene immediately after the film was made. Shortly thereafter, there were also photographs of the track line taken by a Forest Service worker named Lyle Laverty. But we also had additional castings made by Bob Titmus. And, again, Meldrum will be the first to point out to you that not only does he see what he thinks is a mid-tarsal break in at least one of the Patty castings, but also there's toe displacement change from different footprint to footprint. He says it is obviously a dynamic foot, not a wooden carving or some other kind of a false foot. He says the toe displacement and all these other factors, the mid-tarsal break, not only is it a dynamic foot, but he says anatomically, it is consistent with other kinds of early human archaic ancestors that he has observed in the paleoanthropological record. And he says that there's no way, yet again, that a couple of cowboys in 1968 would have had any knowledge of how to hoax a mid-tarsal break and the other elements of the dynamic foot that they see there in the casting. So maybe even more so than the footage itself, the footprints to me are like, man, if they could fake that in 68, those guys could have rivaled Einstein with their genius. I mean, that would have been seemingly impossible.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other part, and Meldrum's breakdown of the film, and I've done the same thing that you did. I talked to him about it extensively. That's all good. It's my eyes. I just depend on my eyes. The gait, the walk, the physicality, the appearance, and everything else looks real to me. And really and if you go back to look at, I hate to say this, Stanley Kubrick is a perfectionist, and he wanted real apes in 2001, right? He tried to. Now I get to laugh at you.
Well deserved.
And he wanted to train apes, right? And he couldn't pull that off, but he wanted the most realistic thing possible. So he gets stage performers and mimes and what have you, these actors to come in and put on the best ape suits that he could get. And the bottom line is this, Micah. It's as accurate and amazing. It's the best film ever made, 2001: A Space Odyssey. Perfection.
I agree.
Perfection. But you know that those are dudes in a costume.
Yeah.
Right? That's it.
No mistake.
No mistake. It's my eye, and you go back to that Patterson-Gimlin film, and I am perplexed. It should be a dude in a suit. It should be, right? That's what it should be.
Right.
But it doesn't look like it.
This is what frustrates me, because we could have such a conversation just about that, and we haven't got the time right now. But look, I have to very briefly raise the fact that people have said, look, we know that was a hoax, and we know who was in the suit. Bob Hieronymus, the retired Pepsi-Cola bottler from Yakima, Washington, he came forward, said it was him. Well, the suit he described, he said, was made of horse hide, and he said it stunk. And he said that it was kind of like a big T-shirt on top and then drawstring pants on the bottom. All right, I'm not seeing a great big loose-fitting T-shirt and drawstring pants in that video.
And he said gloves, and you don't see gloves.
No.
I had Bob on the show. I had Bob on the show probably 5 years ago. He never even mentioned Bigfoot. He never mentioned, and we talked about everything else in the sun, but we didn't talk about that.
Well, but here's the thing. You had Bob Hieronymus that claimed to have worn the suit.
And also had the Volkswagen bus.
Because there was a Bob Hieronymus who also was a radio host.
No.
Wasn't that?
No.
Okay. No, so this was, okay. Well, anyway, so Bob Hieronymus. All right. Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah, no.
But now here's the thing. Philip Morris, the guy he just passed away a couple of years ago, but he was the guy from here in North Carolina who said that he sold Patterson the suit.
I remember.
Okay.
Yes.
So he says that he made a suit. But when he watched the film, he said, well, but, the arms aren't right. And the suit I sold him didn't have breasts. They added that. The face mask is different from the one I sold him too. So he must have augmented it. But that's definitely my suit. So what we have here is one guy saying it was all made of horsehide. Another guy saying that's the suit I made, but the suit I see in the film looks nothing like the one I sold him. None of the skeptical interpretations seem to add up. They all have their own take, and none of those, they all conflict. And so, again, when people have tried to pour water on this and say it was a hoax and we know who wore the suit, I'm like, maybe actually you don't. And let's not forget that when Bob Hieronymus was actually suited up on camera in the early 2000s, I think, and made to recreate this at the actual Bluff Creek film site, it looked nothing like what
wasn't even close.
68.
Wasn't even close. And there is one, I keep going back to my eyes, and I see rippling, tensed up muscles through the skin.
Yes.
I mean, it's remarkable. And if that's a suit, that's a tight-fitting Arnold Schwarzenegger, in that suit with rippling muscles.
I just cannot at this point say that I am convinced that is a suit. Again, the technology, not to say that it couldn't have been done, but it seems that it would have been incredibly difficult for Patterson and Gimlin to have faked that with what few resources they had, especially when you compare that to what John Chambers and others couldn't have achieved, as believably with Planet of the Apes or in other films at that time.
Yeah, 2001. Kubrick should have hired them. He totally missed the boat. Hey, Micah, a great conversation tonight, man, and thank you for going into overtime. And I'm wondering if I can apply over at the Debrief, because I would like to go over there and stir it up. I'd love to go over there and chop some wood.
You should definitely do that. And I know what I'm going to do when I come to California next time. You and I are going to have drinks and a YouTube deep dive in search of Sasquatch.
I'll talk to you, man. Micah, thank you so much, my friend. And it's MicahHanks.com. Where can everybody get a hold of you?
That's it, MicahHanks.com. The email, the social media, all the podcasts, everything can be found right there.
And with that, I've got 5 seconds to hit this button right here and roll credits. Micah, thank you so much, man. Have a great night. Thank you for the overtime. Thank you for the conversation. The absolute best. Micah Hanks right there. Oh. Wow, what a great conversation tonight. What a great day. What a great way to end the show. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and Micah Hanks. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Camarian. Show is produced by Hilton J. Palm, Renee Dennis, and Kevin. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Webmasters, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Spaceboy's guitar. That's right there that he recorded that with. I got it. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is only copyrighted 2021 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Until tomorrow night with Richard Bleepin' Dolan, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I want everybody to be safe. It's now time to fade to black.